Today is a mighty important day. It's the day we finally get to call ourselves full-fledged mages and wear the white uniform with the golden tassels, even us girls. Well, if we pass the final exam, of course. I am not too worried, though. Reggie said it would be a piece of cake, and besides, we passed every other exam with flying colors. What I really want is to beat Cornelius and wipe that self-assured grin off his stupid mug. The teams have gathered at the academy. The familiar complex of solid wooden logs with the practice field feels different at night. More like a field camp than a school. The instructors have lit braziers and they all wear a serious expression and their battle gear. This is all quite intimidating. Even Instructor Lydia looks fierce with her pistol and gauntlet. I think they just want us to be in the mood and it's working. I haven't felt this stressed since the entrance examinations. As soon as everyone is here, Professor Tilly has us group up by teams, in ranks of 2 with the leader up front. Reggie is our captain. With his square jaw and dreamy green eyes, he is quite the dashing figure. He looks forward with aplomb and I find comfort in his confident stance and wide shoulders. That Cornelius wastrel sneers at us, but our dauntless leader would not even acknowledge his presence. That will show him. After Reginald, there is Carmela, looking as fierce and aloof as usual. True to her nickname of the Amazon, she stands tall and uncaring, looking nifty with her saber. Our shield master Cedric is his usual bubbling self. He can barely stop moving, and I can see the restraint he must exert not to start one of his usual jokes. Oh, what a cad! I hope his good mood carries us through this ordeal as well. Then, there is Will, as silent and brooding as usual. I'm sure his keen intellect is already picking up clues and tips to help us get ahead. And then there's me. I may not look like much, but my firebolts are second to none. I worked hard for this, and even Professor Tilly commended me for their power and accuracy. Take that, Cornelius. Where are your tradition and lineage now, huh? You can shove your mongrel remarks up your. Before my thought can finish, a man exits the command room and walks to the center of the line of teachers. It's the black dog himself. My God, he is so young. I knew this, of course, but to see it with my own eyes. I met old Coolidge when he oversaw the entrance ceremony last October and, well, he looked like that kind of general from the stories who cares for his men. This Hopkins person is different. He wears the black uniform Coolidge had disdained and it suits him like a glove. And he seems, I don't know, dangerous. His dark eyes pass over us and I shiver a bit. He reminds me of Will when he had us skirt the rules to win the previous game. Like he would go to any length to achieve victory. I'm not sure I like it, but if that kind of man can protect others from what befell my family then I won't complain. After he is done with his inspection, the black dog addresses us. His voice is curt and clear, silencing our whispers in an instant. Welcome, students, to this year's practical exam. Tonight, you will take part in a mock mission that will push your training and adaptability to their very limits. I expect each and every one of you to act like the war mages you have trained to become. Good luck and do us proud. That is all. With those few words, he steps back and Tilly takes the ground. That's it. That's the inspirational speech a general delivers. I cannot say that I'm impressed. But then there is no more time for diversion. Tilly is explaining the details of the mission. Your task tonight is as follows: you will go with your team to an outpost built deep within the Spiderwood forest. There, you will meet up with the patrol leader who will give you further instructions. We will send you out one team at a time. Team Zephyr starts immediately, the rest of you head inside the canteen to wait your turn. We walk back inside the complex through a wide door and sit at our usual tables in the building's long refectory. Every team plans and discusses in low voices and we are no exception. What do you think? I ask no one in particular. Orientation, followed by a patrol and a fight. Carmela starts in her smooth alto, the spider wood is dense enough that they can set up an ambush. Test our awareness. So kind of you to untangle that web, Cedric deadpants, forcing all of us to groan. Yet when we resume our conversation, the mood is slightly lighter. This is Cedric's gift. He can always bring levity at our darkest time, like that time he comforted me during Christmas. I do not know if the others have noticed how much of a difference it makes, but I have. I agree with Carmela, Reginald continues calmly. I think we can use lanterns until the camp, then switch to spells during the patrol. That way, we can conserve our aura and reduce our exposure right as the enemy attacks. What do you think, Will? Silence. Will? Yes, I heard you. I think it's fine. We all turn to the broody boy. He is resting his chin on his hands, fingers interlaced together. He usually does that when he is formulating one of his dastardly plans. What's the matter, my friend? Cedric asks. Nothing yet, just something, Hopkins said. What, that speech? Reggie scoffs, that was miserable. Perhaps Cornelius was right, and this man doesn't have the shoulders to lead. A true general should make one's blood boil with only a few words, he declares with passion. Reggie is so heroic. He is all fire and fury, and I am so proud. With him as a leader, we are the best team around and fear nothing and no one. Will answers noncommittally as his dark eyes bore into Reggie's righteous expression, perhaps. In any case, we should do as you say until we receive further orders. We continue to converse as two more teams are led away. Soon, only Cornelius's team, as well as Phoenix's team, Pearl team and ours, are left. I feel more and more anxious for some reason and soon realize the cause. The instructors are coming and going wearing peculiar expressions. Their faces are too blank. Should they be this nervous? I mean, we are the ones taking the exam, right? Soon, it is our turn and Tilly leads us away to the armory where we retrieve our gear, as well as lanterns, a map, and other sundries. Is something the matter, sir? Asks Will, who picked on the professor's apparent nervousness. Nothing you need to concern yourselves with, the older man retorts curtly, just focus on the mission, that is all you need to do. We follow him to a smaller gate out of the enclave and directly into the spider wood. The line of tall trees looks much more ominous under the night light, their branches now the gnarled hands of some petrified witches. Your mission starts now. Good luck, Tilly says, then hurries back as if there was an emergency. That's queer, Cedric observes with furrowed brows. We do not reply, and soon all turn to face the expanse of dark woods before us. Spiderwood may have a sinister name, but in truth it's just a large patch of wood left completely untamed at the edge of Avalon. It remains untouched, mostly for training purposes and also as a buffer against the mundane world. We have crossed it a few times for orientation practice as well as games and mock battles. The capture the flag operations are particularly fun because the wood is so dense. There are many hiding spots and secret paths, and Will is devious beyond measure, giving our squad the edge every time. We are on familiar grounds. Night patrol formation. Let's do this, people, Reggie announces in his serious voice. We light some lanterns and walk into the dense shrubs, searching for a path. Cedric opens the way as usual. Not only does he have keen senses, he also wears an enchanted piece of cavalry breastplate and a heavy helmet. Reggie and Carmela follow and provide illumination. Then, there is me, who can throw the best bolts as well as a decent shield. Finally, Will closes the march in the black ensemble he chose. He also carries a small crossbow, and though both he and Reggie know how to use pistols, we do not have any at the moment. We walk slowly through the dense vegetation in a single file, and I am grateful that the clothes we wear are thick enough to protect my legs from both brambles and insects. It does not take long for the lights of the town to disappear and the forest to close in around us. The world is reduced to bulbous tree trunks strangled by ivy, branches and roots that grab at our feet, and above our head, an impenetrable canopy. The two bobbing lights from the lanterns become our talismans to ward off the darkness. All I can hear are our heavy breaths, the snaps of broken twigs and the creaks of live wood. After a while, a curious sensation of timelessness grips my heart, and I start to wonder if perhaps we are lost, if the trail no longer exists and we crossed some fey arch to disappear in this green hell for all of eternity. Fortunately, we find the beaten path before this curious idea grows into more than a fantasy. "That's the Wilson Trail," Reginald comments. "We can follow it to the flag clearing, then the camp is just around a bend, according to the map." We turn right and walk for another 15 minutes. It feels good to see the stars again. Eventually, the path widens into a glade with a massive willow tree at its center. That's where we won our first capture the flag battle against that pompous dolt Cornelius and his cronies. I remember the area well, except that under the light of the moon it feels much less friendly. Also, was this always here? Jesus Christ! What? We gather in front of the huge trunk, struck by disbelief. Its previously pristine bark is now shredded, lacerated by a double set of claws. The marks are so deep that I could easily hide 2 knuckles in the furrows. "It's like a beast marked its territory or something," Cedric exclaims. "What kind of beast?" "There isn't anything in the spiderwood that can leave such marks," Carmela objects, her hand on the hilt of her saber. "A black bear?" Reginald suggests, hesitant. Will approaches and silently places his hand against the maimed bark. Even spaced at their widest, there is no way for his fingers to touch the outermost ditches. "My God," I helplessly remark. "A black bear? More like a grizzly. Do you recognize the markings?" Reginald asks our resident know-it-all. "Maybe," we'll answer cautiously, "it's just that no. No, it can't be." "Well, out with it, man," Cedric urges. "Werewolf." We all freeze in shock and horror. "The final exam can't be a werewolf, right?" Cedric asks with fear. "Impossible. Don't be ridiculous, man," Reginald chides him. "They would never allow fresh recruits against such a monster, and particularly not in a wooded area." "No, I think it's unexpected." "What should we do then?" "We can't exactly go toe-to-toe against a werewolf." I agree that it would be suicide, but right now we need to link up with the patrol at the outpost. It would still be safer than heading back. We all agree, and I remember the classes we had on werewolves. They are cursed humans who turn into giant lupin hybrids under the influence of the full moon or, sometimes, voluntarily. In wolf form, they are vicious creatures that kill for sport. They are incredibly fast, monstrously strong, and their claws can carve steel as if it were wax. They are even more dangerous in forests, and the deadliest ones temper their savagery with human-like cunning. Only experienced groups track them down and still incur the occasional casualties. I remember that Carmela's elder sister was killed in such a hunt, poor thing. If this is truly a werewolf, we must act with all haste. We are vulnerable. "Let's go quickly," Will urges us. We follow the trail out of the clearing and the forest swallows us once more. Everyone has their weapons out and I call upon my magic. I feel my aura suffuse my body and I guide it to the gauntlet where it lays, quiescent and ready. The energy glows softly in my mind like a reliable and constant companion. I have but to use the right symbol and say the word, and by my will manifest a spear of fire that can go through a man without slowing down. Not that I ever did such a thing. We are tense, checking every angle but never stopping along the way. Visibility is reduced when the road turns around a bend. We instinctively accelerate as the fires of the outpost come into view. Something is wrong. "Stay in formation," Reginald urges us as we move closer. There are no sentries, and as we get close enough, I notice a discarded helmet on the ground. Some lanterns around the perimeter are still shining. We enter the outpost still in a circle with me at the center. It is closer to a treehouse than to a real installation. Just a few benches around a fire, 3 tents and a rope leading up to an observation post. Reginald gestures us in. There are no bodies, but it smells like blood, and soon we find the source, a trail of red leading further into the woods as if something heavy had been dragged. God no, Carmela whispers softly, her voice quavering. There is only one track, and the rest of the camp left in a hurry, Cedric observes, think they went after the beast. To rescue their comrade, undoubtedly. Reggie proclaims. I look at the blood on the ground. All that red no, I have not seen the body, so I must not give in to despair. Still. We must go after them. They might need our help, our fearless leader proclaims, and I feel courage fill my heart. Yes, we are to be war mages. We need to act like proper heroes. All of us nod, our faces grim yet determined. All of us except Will. We all turn to him, surprised. Will. Reggie frowns, his chiseled jaw locked by anger. I think we should head back to town and call for reinforcements. What? And leave the others alone? Reggie explodes. Calm down, Reggie, please, Cedric says with a grim expression. As for Carmela, she is staring around frantically, trying to cover all angles. I don't know what to say. This is the first time I saw Will argue for a full retreat. We are not equipped to face a werewolf. Only Carmela has a silver blade and my silver-tipped quarrels are too small, not to mention that I have only the 3. If we fall back now, we can have this place crawling with veteran fighters in half an hour. These men don't have half an hour. You don't know that, and you should consider that we could be more hindrance than actual help. I never took you for a coward. Reginald bellows, red with fury. William, the ever-placid William, takes a deep breath in as his face contorts with unbridled anger. Then, just as I believe the two will come to blows, he settles down and his visage grows as cold and aloof as usual. I don't like it when he does this, bury it all inside, but now is not the moment to fight. We must follow Reggie's lead. Very well, I suppose you will have to learn by yourself. Lead the way, O fearless leader, the dark man answers, his voice dripping with sarcasm. I can tell that Reggie has been needled beyond reason, but his anger is misplaced. Reggie, if we want to help them, we must leave now, I declare. Right, form up, he says, with a last venomous look at our friend. Reginald takes the lead with his gauntlet prepped and dagger raised. Cedric follows and then Carmela too, after a delay. She seems despondent. I don't like it. Oh, I don't like any of this. Why is the team arguing now? And is Carmela fine? No one said anything to her. Carmi? I ask in a soft voice, but she doesn't respond. Her eyes are still looking around, haunted, and her back is bent forward. I'm not so sure that this is a good idea. We are in way over our head. What Will said is true. No, I must not doubt Reggie, not now. He is a true gentleman and one day he will become Black Dog, I am sure of it. I will take point. Cedric and Carmela, be prepared to cover me. Mina, keep that spell ready and Will, give us night vision. Night vision is one of those weird spells that Will picked up at the library that no one else wanted. Thieves' magic, Cornelius would say. It has proven useful on more than one occasion though. Pierce the veil, Will whispers, and I can feel my view grow clearer and the world comes into focus. We leave the lanterns behind and trot forward. A blind man could follow the trail. Besides the blood, there are also the many footsteps of pursuers. We follow the chaos for a few minutes before seeing our first signs of combat. In another clearing, this one caused by a fallen tree, we find broken weapons and spell impacts but mercifully no other bodies. We can't be too far, keep going, Reggie urges us. I am getting really worried about Carmela but there is little I can do right now. We burst into yet another clearing, this one unfamiliar, and stop in our tracks. Surprise robs me of my speech. I expected a battlefield, I expected dead people, and to some extent, I expected howls, but certainly not this. The small valley has an incline with us at its bottom. Above us, a massive stone rises up from the grass. Below it sit 3 mages, clearly still alive and bound by chains, and on top of the stone itself, the displayed corpse of the werewolf. I had never seen one before, but there is no mistaking it. The body is humanoid, to some extent, though the head is as lupin as can be, with a jaw filled with serrated teeth shining gloomily under the moonlight. Sharp, long claws hang from its long fingers. They are big enough to circle my waist with room to spare. And someone killed it? And took the mages prisoner? How can this be? Paralyzed by fear and indecision, we helplessly witness the spectacle before us. Reggie is the first to speak, and his sentence summarizes our minds well. What in the name of God is going on? Immediately, we get our answer. It starts with an aura, not the rich and shimmering one we all share, but a cold and unyielding wave of power unlike anything I have ever felt before. It crashes against the squad and pulls us under, subjugating our spirits beneath its frigid claws. I gasp and hold my chest. Carmela's blade slides from her helpless fingers. We all moan and fight the onset of despair, for something is coming. Heavy hooves stomp on the ground with deliberate slowness, and I turn my head to the right to see a figure at my worst nightmares could not have conjured. A gigantic warhorse walks in our direction. Powerful muscles roll lazily under a coat as dark as soot. Eyes of flaming red regard us with disdain from up high, and even I can tell the incredible power waiting to be unleashed. This is the king of war horses, and if the apocalypse comes and the pale night rides, it will do so on the back of such a creature. Sitting comfortably on the infernal beast is a young woman. She is beautiful, with delicate golden hair around an elegant face. Her blue eyes inspect us impassively, and the normalcy stops there, for below her neck she is clad in a midnight suit of armor that an emperor would envy. An intricate lattice of plates clings to her lithe form, and on her chest, she bears an unknown coat of arms as strange as it is threatening. She also holds in her hand a cruel hunting spear coated with blood. The aura comes from her. It rolls from her silhouette in waves like a winter storm, flaying us with its sheer intensity. It freezes me to my soul. More snacks, she mocks in a haughty voice, such an auspicious night. You all just come running, do you not? I turn to Reggie, too out of sort to even start to think. Who are you and what have you done? This is White Cabal territory, he boldly claims. I say this is my territory since I hunt in it, she replies, uncaring, and I hope that you will offer more of a challenge than your predecessors. Release our friends immediately. Reggie orders with a squeaky voice that I can barely recognize. I turn around and see that Carmi is ignoring us, still staring at the wolf's corpse while Will's expression is a frozen mask. The only other person to react is Cedric. Reggie, my God, Reggie. What? I think she's a vampire. We turn to the woman, even Carmela, and watch in disbelief as she slowly grins, revealing pointed fangs. As she does it, a passing cloud shifts and moonlight bathes her alabaster skin in a ghostly light. My fear turns to panic. Hold fast, Reggie trumpets, hold fast, and we have nothing to fear. We are the shield of Avalon. The woman chuckles and slides off her mount with preternatural grace. She steps forward while twirling her spear in the air, then stops 15 paces away from us. You have nothing to fear. Let me put this to the test. Then she disappears. One instant she's away, in a relaxed stance, and the next she is by our side, holding Carmela by the neck. Shit. Cedric swears. Let her go, you monster, guiding blade. Reggie screams and he throws his dagger. The projectile flies into the air. Unfortunately, the devious vampire moves and the projectile rakes Carmela's flank. She screams in pain, causing all of us to stop. The vampire lifts fingers now coated in blood and licks them languidly. Not the sharpest knife in the drawer, are you? She asks Reginald with palpable contempt. None of us dare move. None of us act as the vile monster bears our sobbing friend's neck and bites it. We are still paralyzed a few seconds later when her groans are silenced and the creature drops her unmoving form. No! I scream, no! Carmela! You beast! Reggie roars. She won't get away with it. I'll send her to the abyss. Firebolt. Hundreds of hours of practice have made my spells true. The beautiful and familiar crimson streak dashes across the valley. The woman lifts a hand which now shines blue. With contemptuous ease, she slaps my spell away. Is that all? She asks with a bored voice. Firebolt. I yell once more, soon followed by the others. We send hexes and curses after the demon, but she either deflects or dodges them all. She does not even move from her place. Is she mocking us? Do not relent. Reggie bellows, and we keep firing. 3 by 3, we send ineffectual projectiles after her. I have never felt so powerless, even when my family was killed. I fight back the fear and the grief, not just for Carmela but also for the rest of us. We are going to die here. And then something else happens. I now realize that we have indeed attacked by 3, which means that William disappeared. I now see a blur moving closer to the vampire, step by step. I must distract her. Light! I scream, and a blue ray extends from my gauntlet to the creature's head. She closes her eyes. Yes. This is our chance. Will jumps at her back with one of his silver-tipped bolts used as an improvised stiletto. Hope surges in my heart. Then the monster turns and catches William mid-lunge. A commendable effort, you even masked the noise. She dodges one last spell and bites down, staring Reggie in the eye. She's making sure we see William perish. No, I will not allow that. Reggie charges forward, and I follow him bravely. We must not give up. Then something queer happens. I am sent in the air. I push myself from the ground and spit grime and leaves. Gah! What happened? Cedric, Reggie, and I are in a heap on the ground. How? No. It's the vampire. She's toying with us. It's over, it really is. We are doomed. Carmela and Will, my friends. I can't believe it. This has to be an illusion, a nightmare. We were just going to become more mages. How can it all turn out like this? Disappointing. Pathetic. Are you really combat mages? We will not falter. Reggie spits, his spirit unbroken. The vampire's cold blue eyes turn to him with slow purpose and I feel an intense weight settling on my shoulder like a mighty yoke. Reggie flinches. You must be the leader of this sorry lot. I am Reginald Lewis. I care not, the vampire interrupts and Reggie's voice dies in his throat. I feel something like a presence in my mind, a pervasive poison that fills me with dread, but try as I might, I cannot shake it off. She's doing something to me. You are a poor excuse of a man to send this ragtag joke of a troop against me. She blurs again and when I see her, she is holding Cedric by the neck, her other hand digging into his armor as if it were paper. Cedric, kind-hearted Cedric, squirms and screams in her hold. When will the nightmare end? I let my tears fall freely from my cheeks. What can I do? What can I do? She's just too fast, too strong. Nothing we've done even bothered her. There, she continues casually as if she were entertaining guests, do tell him about honor and glory. Go on. She squeezes and Cedric yells in pain. Your pointless sacrifice honors the Cabal. Your fighting spirit will live on in the afterlife, she declares in a fake voice, a mockery of Reggie's previous statements. Go on, leader, she urges Reggie. Her fangs are bared in a nightmarish smile, sly and filled with disdain. Oh yes, so filled with disdain. Tell him you'll win. We never stood a chance. Reggie's face is a mask of pain and powerlessness. He, too, is crying. Then to my surprise, he swallows his sobs and turns to me. Mina. I am so scared. Run. Huh. Now. Run. I obey. I leave all my friends behind in this place of death, their corpses strewn across the grass. I run and I do not look back, and the worst thing is that I already know it will be for nothing. She's just too fast. I won't make it back to the camp, much less back to town. It's over. It's all over. As I run with all the desperation, I suddenly remember something. A voice I heard only an hour ago. It feels like an eternity now. Act like the war mage you have trained to become, the black dog had said. That's right. I am a war mage. If I must die, let my sacrifice be of use. I will warn the others. I shift right on the path, to a slightly more open area where the sky was opened by the fall of a large aspen. I channel all my power, all my will into one last spell. I wonder what you hope to achieve, an amused voice comments behind me. I turn around and see her only a few steps away from me. She stands there like a lady at court, talking about the weather. The contrast between her polite observation and the slaughter behind chills me to the bone. The gauntlet thrums with power and my hand is uncomfortably warm. This is it. I raise the gauntlet and the woman lifts an aristocratic brow, only to display genuine surprise when I point fully upward. Firebolt. I yell, and the spell takes off, its shiny radiance a reverse meteor that breaches the canopy and climbs to the sky. The spell explodes. The loud detonation sends leaves fleeting in the air, while the light shines like a small sun. A beacon, the vampire asks. I turn to her, facing my death. I do not lower my eyes nor bend my back. I am a war mage and will die like one. Now, all of Avalon will come for you, I declare, and close my eyes. I pray one last time, thinking about my friends and the regrets I have. I wish I could have lived longer, and yet I find that if I had to do it again, I would. Carmela's aloof grace and down-to-earth behavior, Reggie's spirit, William's guile and Cedric's humor. Yes, I was blessed to end in such a company. Nothing happens. Is she toying with me? Melthanian, not bad, cub. Perhaps enough for a passing grade. I open my eyes with surprise. The vampire is still here, tapping her index against her chin. Her eyes shift from the sky to me. They are no longer full of scorn. This exam is over. Follow. What? What? I sputter. What? Huh? This was not real. No. This was all an exam. No, impossible. The bodies, the blood. No. Maybe. Is this a farce? Am I dead or hallucinating the entire scene? This is too much. I burst into tears. If this is some sort of cruel game. It is not. Your friends are waiting. Come, I don't have all night. I stand there, racked by emotions. The vampire turns and I meet her gaze. This time, it carries no judgment. Your courage was commendable. Do use it a bit longer, there are still 3 more groups to assess. I stare in disbelief, then wipe my tears. 3 groups, she said. That means she was part of the planning, probably. Also, there would be more bodies if she had found the other groups first and she has little reasons to keep me alive. The walk back to the clearing is an ordeal. My nerves are a frayed bundle of raw panic, but I want to see them, I want to know. And finally, I do. The mages covered in chains are standing around the lying forms of Carmela, Cedric and Reggie, and I now realize that the steel links do not cover their hands. William stands by the side with his arms crossed. I run to him and hug him, but I only allow myself to cry for a few seconds. I want to see to the others. Then I realize something is weird. I pull back, eyes narrowed, and the previous fear makes a return. Did you know this was a test? He hesitates, but eventually relents. Yes. And you did not tell us? Why? His dark eyes inspect me, considering. There are some lessons that can only be learned the hard way. Reggie is a good man, but he needed that. That? This nightmare? We needed to go through that. He nods. I want to slap him. Why? I demand, angry beyond measure. There will be time for talks later, the vampire declares, and we turn. Carmela is on her feet, blinking owlishly. I jump to hug her as she takes in her surroundings. So this is how it is, she says. I fiercely hug her and feel better when she pats my back. I know she dislikes physical contact, I just couldn't help it. Is that a real werewolf? She asks with a hoarse voice. I pull back just as the vampire woman answers with the affirmative. Did you kill it yourself? Yes. Can I take a closer look? Yes, but hurry. You five must be on your way. Carmela moves to the stone but I interrupt her. Carmela, your flank. What about it? I look for her wound but find none. I turn to the blonde vampire with a struck expression. I stabbed my own palm to get some blood. You should have noticed that it was too dark to be hers. I hadn't. You panicked and your addled brain filled the gaps, she continues, as Cedric now wakes up with a jolt. What? He asks. Then he sees us all standing around, and slaps his forehead. Oh, the exam, damn it. I guess we failed, huh? The exam. I don't know what to think. Cedric flinches when he realizes that the vampire is still here, but he soon tries to gather his courage and even starts a conversation. You're amazing. An illusionist? I never saw you around here, are you a new archmage? The men look at him with utter disappointment mixed with disbelief. The vampire just ignores him. It takes him but a few moments to realize his mistake and he pales once more. Reggie is last awake. When his eyes open, he also quickly understands that this was all a test. Our leader alternates between outrage and despair. Eventually, he turns to the head war mage, a dour man I sometimes saw at the practice field. What? Shut up. Stand up and prepare to follow us back to the town. I have a right to. 2 hours of detention. Reggie clamps his jaws but he doesn't press the issue and he is right. I, too, can tell from the mage's stony expression that he will not hesitate to have us peel potatoes until the winter solstice, should we dare to mouth off. The vampire woman closes with Carmela and whispers something in her ear. My friend turns away from the monstrous corpse still laid atop the monolith and joins us, her face contemplative. As she passes me by, she squeezes my hand and I feel better. The walk of shame back to the town is the worst of my life. At some point, Cedric starts to whisper only to be told to shut it by the mage trio. They have left their chains behind, which were put on by another team. It looks like everyone will get to experience facing off against a monster of legend. We drag ourselves not to the barracks but to the administrative headquarters of the White Cabal military. There, we are made to sit on uncomfortable chairs with no water and forced to stay silent while the dour mage leaves, probably to report. 10 minutes later, we are summoned to the office of the Black Dog himself. We line in front of him as he leans back in his leather chair, hands crossed over his lap. He glares at us from across a spotless desk, managing to look down upon us despite being the only one seated. Eventually, he starts in a tone rife with disappointment. Do I need to spell out your result? Sir, I must protest. Reggie starts immediately. You must, the dog interrupts him, do you object to my methods? Perhaps you find me unfair. Perhaps you find my standards too high. Reggie reddens with shame. Which specific aspect of this task did you find to be too hard? The vampire? Indeed. Did I ask you to kill a vampire? But. Did I? Black Dog Hopkins demands, raising his voice for the first time. Silence. Answer me, Reginald Lewis, did I give you the impossible task to kill a vampire at any time of the briefing? Silence. So far, 2 teams have passed this test and will receive the title of War Mage. Impossible. Reginald sputters. The black dog smashes his fist on his desk and we all jump in surprise. His next words drip with contempt. You have all been judged according to the exact same standards. Team Phoenix and Flame successfully pulled back and reported the presence of a werewolf, as well as the disappearance of the patrol. What? But, this is cowardice. Reggie exclaims. Mr. Lewis, what was the consequence of your so-called bravery this night? No need to answer, I will spell it for you. You and your entire team were killed to the last man, only managing to give some semblance of warning to our town because of the presence of mind of Mina Kincaid. Did I summarize your achievements to your satisfaction? Yes, we acted foolishly. William was right when he suggested a retreat. What looked like cowardice was in fact common sense. The White Cabal military is a professional outfit dedicated to the defense of our kind against the horrors of this world and those who would seek to enslave or exterminate us. I will not accept glory hounds and sanctimonious imbeciles in the ranks of my beloved army, for failure is not an option. That is why, Mr. Lewis, we do not charge in against a superior opponent with no plan. That is why, Mr. Lewis, we prioritize the survival of our team through common sense and basic logic. And finally, that is why, when lectured by a superior officer, we do not question and object but stay quiet and listen. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Mr. Hope, Lady Ariane informs me that you saw through the whole thing. I am tired of wasting my breath on a bunch of incompetent morons. You will explain the situation. William licks his lips and turns to us. He is a bit hesitant at first, yet soon his words flow with the same precision and clarity as when he explains his plan. The first hint happened during the speech. I can tell that you did not pay attention, so I will remind you. Act like the war mages you have trained to become, I whisper, my eyes widening. Precisely, Will says with approval, this was a strange thing to say. I expected him to speak about valor, intelligence, or some such, but the specific wording and brevity of the message struck me as odd. Then there were the marks on the tree. They were a little too obvious and also lacked some other elements of territorial marks. Huh? Cedric asks. Urine and fecal matter, William adds helpfully. Oh. In any case, the camp was also a setup. The trail was too clean. Normally, you would have a large splatter at the site of the attack and more chaos where the victim would try to get free. I was pretty sure that this was all a trick by that time, and that's why I suggested that we fall back. Behind Will, the black dog allows himself a small nod, the only sign of appreciation he has shown so far. Why not tell us? Cedric asks, stupefied. Reggie remains silent, but he, too, looks curious. That would have defeated the purpose of the exercise. We were meant to realize that we were outclassed and retreat, which I tried to explain. Instead, you called me a coward. William's voice is not judgmental. If anything, he looks sad. Reginald purses his lips and averts his gaze. I became sure when we spotted the vampire. Lady Ariane, apparently. Do you remember the details of the disaster at New Orleans? We remember, of course, they only escaped thanks to the help of O. Is she the one? The very same, the black dog interjects. Right, I asked around out of curiosity and the survivors described her as a young-looking woman with blonde hair and blue eyes. That's why I was certain. When she pretended to bite me, she did not force me to lose consciousness, so I faked stupor while she took care of you. She tasked me and the instructors with making sure you were all comfortable before going after Mina. A series of oohs and ahs flow through the room. Good enough, now, attention, the black dog says. We instinctively snap into salute. The black dog stands up and comes to stand before Reginald. He is quite tall, I notice. Reginald Lewis, your performance was dismal. You allowed your lust for glory to get to your head, leading to the death of your entire squad as well as a failure to inform command of your situation. You did not order the creation of a defensive perimeter to delay the vampire, instead attacking her recklessly. You disregarded the advice of your subordinate and insulted him in front of his peers. You fail. You are hereby relieved of your position as squad leader until you pass the seminary on squad management to the satisfaction of your instructors. He walks to Cedric. Cedric Birmingham, you remained quiet when your fellow member objected to Mr. Lewis' inane plan, you remained quiet after witnessing signs of a dangerous enemy, you failed to acknowledge your squad members' intense emotional distress. Cedric turns to Carmela, face stricken by surprise then by guilt. And you omitted to establish a defensive shield to delay a superior opponent. You fail. You will attend intensive training for 3 months, following which you will be allowed to take the exam again. He turns to Carmela. Carmela von Lieb. You should have known better. Yes, sir. You fail. You will follow the same program as Mr. Birmingham here, as well as compulsory counseling. Yes, sir. She lowers her head. Mina Kincaid. I want to close my eyes but I do not. I keep my spine straight and look forward. Not once did you question your leader's poor decision, nor did you act on the distress of your comrade in arms. You followed blindly. You fail. Yes, sir. Compassion and intelligence mean nothing if you do not use them. I expected more from you. Yes, sir, sorry, sir. You will attend the same training as the 2 others. He stops before the last member of our group. William Hope. You displayed wisdom by objecting to the plan and loyalty by still sticking with your friends. Lady Ariane says that your obfuscation spell is, and I quote, amusing though he should also work on his smell. You pass. You have 2 choices. You can remain with your friends as they attend the supplementary training, or supplementary training, sir. I expected no less. He walks back behind his seat and picks the next paper off the bundle in front of him. You have your orders. Now, get out of my office. We leave. What a night. It has been 1 hour since the end of the exam. Hopkins mentioned a complication and an opportunity and I decided to stick with him and see how things develop. Right now, I am not too worried as I patiently wait inside the White Cabal Council building, their seat of political power. I have to give it to the Cabal, they have a vision. The council building is a large, 2-storied square edifice with plenty of windows and a cupola beneath which an amphitheater serves as the hub of their decision-makers. Both the architecture and the furniture are austere and painted all white, with minimum embellishments. It gives the place an air of dignity that helps visitors forget that this alliance is young and still fragile. A few pieces of art tastefully placed attract the eye, and I am pleased to see that they chose quality over quantity. The paintings are all neoclassical, static and disciplined. I can appreciate their work though I prefer the passion and colors of the romantic movements. It illustrates the creativity and fire I admire in mortals that much more. Also, some neoclassical artists have probably never seen a bare bosom in their life. Seriously, how can they so easily ignore the effects of gravity? Ah, I should not complain. Not that there are any exposed female nipples in the antechamber of this majestic institution anyway. As I muse and inspect a faithful reproduction of Both of the Horatii by David, which shows the 3 Roman brothers as they prepare to fight to the death for their city, a commotion comes from the corridor leading to the exit. The alley I find myself in circles the large chamber at the center of the building. Stairs lead up to a mezzanine and some offices, while large windows give me a commanding view of the city outside. As for why I am not worried, the reasons are twofold. First, the only force that would pose a mortal danger to me is firmly on Hopkins' side and therefore, on mine. Secondly, I am well protected by 20 Rosenthal mercenaries in their emblematic grey uniforms. That is why, when a large group approaches, I do not react, I do not stand up. I do not even avert my eyes from the masterpiece of civic duty and brotherly love before me. Bannings, their grizzled leader, approaches the newcomers. "Halt," he commands as his men close rank with their hands on their pistols. "May I ask your business here?" "I have no need to justify my presence at the heart of my own government," exclaims the leader of the troop of mages who just appeared. "I can tell from their aura that those men know how to fight, though they do not carry the uniform of the Cabal soldiers. There are a dozen of them, some young, some old, all nervous. If it's your government you want to see, the door is behind you to your right." "I'm not here for the door, I'm here to take the vampire into custody in the name of the council," the man declares with far more confidence than he should. I can taste his fear under the cover of a bravado fueled more by pride than common sense. I do not react, nor do I need to. I was right to bring an escort, and Hopkins, always 2 steps ahead of his opposition, was right to give me some company. "Who is this I hear making such bold statements?" "Is that you, Garrick?" asks a calm voice. An old man with a flowing white beard and kind chocolate eyes gently pushes Bannings aside to stand between the two groups. "In the name of the council." "There was no such order, as we both know." "Councilman Frost." "Stand aside, this is no business of yours." "Of course it is, young Garrick, of course it is, since you just claimed a legitimacy you have no right to. Tell me, is this a coup? Are you rebelling against us and all of Avalon? Trying to seize power?" "What? No. We only wish to preserve the—" "Then why do you lie so shamelessly, young Garrick? Why do you usurp the council's authority? Under whose orders are you really here?" he asks, and the younger man clicks his mouth shut. I can appreciate that Councilman Frost is smooth, much smoother than the other man who looks more like a follower and lacks the older gentleman's political acumen. "Let me explain something to you, young Garrick, because though you may be a brilliant lad, you do not have the years of experience that I have. Imagine that you don't want 2 people to be married. The easiest way to do that is to have their families fight, yes? So you send a member of your family to attack a member of their family, there is a fight and the marriage is cancelled. Now, the important part to remember here is that you do not need to win the fight. You only need the fight to happen." Garrick frowns, unsure as to where the old man is going while his followers shuffle nervously. "You, Garrick, have not been sent to subjugate the vampire but to create an incident, and I can prove it." "I sincerely doubt it." "O ye of little faith, tell me, you know that the vampire you were sent to disturb is the one who saved our men during the disaster, yes?" At that, low whispers spread through the ranks. "So? Vampires have no allies but themselves. Do not be naive. Oh no, you do not understand. I am more concerned about the means than the cause. Why, I remember little Sola telling me how the vampire ripped apart the warded steel door of the cellar they were hiding in with her bare hands. Oh, and that lad Emmett said she moved so fast you could only follow her from the flying pieces of men she left behind, that her claws were shredding through their armors like a hot knife through cheese. I think the survivors have started to call her the Red Maiden on account of the rivers of blood she shed that night. Some of the mages behind Garrick are starting to reconsider their night out. And your plan, my dear, was to show up here with your merry band, and what exactly? Do enlighten me. The might of our magic. Did I mention that she slapped away or dodged every spell thrown at her tonight? Yes. Slapped. Not shielded against or dispelled. Slapped. Silence. Our greatest strength is not the magic we wield but our adaptability, training and coordination. We are not as savage as werewolves, nor as fast as vampires. We cannot match the raw power of blood mages and other warlocks, yet we still endure. By being prepared, smart and using the tools we have to their best effect. The first and best tool you have is your brain. Silence. Lots of smacking around, tonight. Garrick looks at the old man in front of him, whose aura has started to condense threateningly, and the trained soldiers by his side. There are also noises of boots hitting the ground in cadence outside. He assesses his chances and for once, caution prevails. He turns tail and scampers with his cronies in tow. The old man comes back to sit by my side with a heavy sigh. I address him. Very convincing, Mr. Frost. Thank you, miss. If we old farts can't protect the new generations from their own stupidity, then the world is doomed. I do not think I was included in the "old fart" comment. Probably. Nevertheless, I hope we get called in soon. My presence here obviously exacerbates tensions, I reply. Not to worry, Hopkins usually does things fast. Ah, here they are. The door to our side opens and the humdrum of whispers suddenly invades the corridor. The entire room is warded against sound and possibly other means of spying, therefore it was until now impossible to eavesdrop on the tumultuous debate going on inside. Now that the wards are disabled, a delicate hearing is no longer required to follow the proceedings. In fact, even Frost winces. You are fools to let this creature into our sanctum. We step in. The council room is a small amphitheater made not out of benches, but out of massive wooden thrones each bearing a different symbol. The first half circle consists of only 7 seats while behind, 2 more rows of smaller chairs make up the rest of the assembly. A single person sits facing the rest behind a bare pulpit. He wears a ceremonial robe in white that fails to mask his gut, as well as a mighty scowl above an impressive pair of chops. As we get in, he smashes an abused gavel on the depressed wood in front of him. If this session is the norm, I give the pulpit another 3 months tops before it collapses under the man's relentless assault. Order! Order! Counselor Pruitt, you do not have the floor. He then turns the incandescent focus of his gaze to me, then reaches inside his garment to reveal a lozenge pendant shimmering with colors. I cannot read the artifact's aura since the room is saturated with auras, but I can guess. Ladies and gentlemen, please reveal and verify your protective amulets, thank you. All present follow suit, including 2 guards by the door who eye me warily. Frost also reveals a defensive charm. I find it revealing that his own looks like a cross between a diamond and an icicle. The seated mages move to their neighbors, checking for defects. When they are certain that their minds are adequately shielded, they turn to the gavel man and nod. I do not try to taste the talismans nor probe their defenses, even though I am curious. It would not be worth it, and I may even get caught. Indeed, one of the main chairs, an old woman as wrinkled as a raisin, inspects me with a curious monocle. I perceive a tendril of essence sneaking towards me. Caution is one thing, disrespect, another. I block the probe and give the old woman a meaningful glance. Her brows rise in surprise, then she gives me an appreciative nod. I return my attention to the man at the center, who Hopkins explained to be the president. His role is to oversee the council and make sure everything goes according to the rules. To do so, he must forfeit any other position for life to limit the risks of partisan behavior. Similarly, he does not have voting powers. Only the 7 members of the council representing the administration, army, education, treasury, research, intelligence and diplomacy can decide the course of the White Cabal, their uneven number helping to prevent deadlocks. Good, the man continues, now I believe Councilman Frost has a proposal to bring forward. I am left standing while the old man ambles to his own chair. He sits back heavily and answers. I do. The chair of diplomacy would like to bring forward a proposal of formal alliance between the Cabal and the vampire house Nirari, represented here by Ariane of the Nirari. What? The irate man from earlier erupts from the side. Frosty, have you lost your goddamn mind? Hopkins, let that thing move freely around our children. She must be purged, both of them must be purged. The objector is a well-dressed mage with a hook nose and an elaborate dress. He is loaded with powerful artifacts, more so than any mage I have met before. I remember that the president called him Pruitt. Watch your tongue. I am done with your talks of tradition and values, they have proven their worth tonight. What? The man screams, I demand an explanation for those words, Frost. Easy enough. I supervised tonight's exam at the request of Counselor Hopkins, and I was shocked when your son ran away and left my granddaughter to die. You old imbecile, this is a trick to move you to betray us and what we stand for. I saw it happen with my own eyes. Your precious Cornelius turned tail and bailed out, leaving others to cover his retreat. If that is the lineage and greatness you claim, I'd rather have little Margie marry a donkey. Interestingly, Frost's aura starts to bleed out in the air and the temperature drops. I remember that Sola's aura removes corruption. His looks a bit more aggressive. Order, order, the president repeats with a tired voice, a sign that he has said these words far too many times. After pounding his poor pulpit like a battering ram on a fortress gate, and threatening to have Pruitt forcefully removed, he finally restores a semblance of calm. Hopkins uses this opportunity to expose his project. The terrible performance of Cornelius Pruitt gave us an opportunity to push an agreement between my house and the whole of the White Cabal rather than just the military. Instead of a garrison, I could have an enclave with families, a library, workshops, everything. The people who would move in would certainly be the more agreeable members of their organization, further bolstering our cooperation. This is the third advantage, the one Jonathan had hinted at during our conversation earlier. It was heavily dependent on Cornelius Pruitt's poor performance, a hazardous prospect in my opinion. I was proven wrong, and Jonathan's uncanny ability to predict human behavior once again surprises me. He would really make a good vampire. Not that he would ever accept. As for me, as long as I remain in control of Marquette, I will have the means to guarantee the alliance. There is a possibility that my plan to take over Illinois with Lady Safair's support does not pan out, but even if this is the case, I am still city master. It would take a war to dislodge me, and Constantine would not allow it. After Jonathan is done talking, the president turns to me. I am now the focus of at least 7 archmages, their guards, and their subordinates currently sitting in the amphitheater's higher tiers. This is almost flattering. Silence descends upon the assembly. I still haven't moved nor talked. Simply, I do not have the floor, and as their guest I am bound to follow their rules. As a courtesy. If one of them starts flinging spells, all deals are off. Nothing untoward happens. The president simply swallows nervously before addressing me. The entire room holds their breath. Ariane of the Nerari, do you approve of Counselor Hopkins' proposal? I do, I reply, and the people present shift in their seats. Hopkins warned me of the rarity of such a situation. For most of them, this is the first time seeing a vampire with their own eyes, not to mention conversing with one. You will truly defend us if we are attacked? The woman with the monocle asks with disbelief. Gah, she doesn't have the floor. Why are they all breaking their own rules so easily? Alliances between mages and vampires are nothing new, I remind them. An agreement was reached between several clans and cabals to take down the Lancaster progenitor, for example. Although those were temporary, nothing prevents us from forging a more permanent pact. The mages mull it over for a moment, then the monocle woman raises her hand. The president gives her the floor, so that probably means we can have a conversation. What's your interest in all of this? Besides additional fighters in case of conflict, I could trade resources with you such as knowledge, training, enchantments. Can't you have your own enslaved mages for that? I tisk at the insinuation. As if I needed them enslaved. I don't keep people as cattle unless they show hostility. So, any mage can just show up on your territory and live there? You come to my lands, I will give you a chance to negotiate an agreement to stay if that is what you wish. The vampires have been only too happy to leave us alone, she continues, why change anything now? I think of Sephaire and Washington. You are mistaken. You are left alone because nobody has deemed it worthwhile to expand into your territory. Yet. Whispers erupt around me. Lords do not operate on the same time frame as you do. Just because there have been no conflicts does not mean that there will not be any in the future. The next question takes me off guard. Would you fight by our side against other vampires? A very good question, and also an easy one. If we enter an alliance, I will let it be known that you are under my protection. Any vampire who attacks you will know that it is a declaration of war upon me. Remember that our agreement is defensive in nature. If you attack a clan, you are on your own. A few of the councilmen nod in understanding. In the end, a table is brought and a contract drawn. The Cabal is allowed an enclave in Marquette in the nicer part of town. Within their controlled area they can do as they please so long as it does not endanger me. I place a limit to their number and to the business interests they can develop and acquire outside of the enclave itself. They are not allowed to interfere with my activities, even if I slay humans, a condition that I thought they would object to more vehemently. We add a few more terms including the possibility to trade for services and an exit clause to allow for a peaceful end to the pact, just in case. I read the contract with attention once it is done, and find no obvious loopholes, so I sign it and its copies, before leaving the room. The counselors were wary at first, but after I failed to sprout horns and wings, the whole negotiation became a tedious affair. As I exit, I consider a significant problem I had been ignoring for the past month. I have no plan. Rather, I have plenty of plans but no vision, no clear destination in place. Tactics I know, strategy, on the other hand. I don't think I have had any strategy since gaining house status. Such a thing is as dangerous as it is stupid and quite unlike me. Even signing 2 agreements in such a short time was hastily made and not particularly smart. I reacted. There is even a small chance that I bound myself to a cause I may later regret. I climb in the carriage that will lead me to my retreat for tonight. I accepted Jonathan's hospitality, and will therefore slumber in a safe room under his house. If he did not have the soldiery under his control, I would never have taken such a risk, even with Loth's impregnable sarcophagus to protect me. I relax in the seat and continue with my introspection. What is my long-term goal? To kill my sire and his mother before either one of them becomes unstoppable. Or at least disable them permanently. How do I manage this? By accruing power, disabling Malachim, and forging alliances with people and organizations. I don't even know if it will suffice. That step is simply the necessary condition to even find a way to deal with them. From then on, there are several ways for me to progress. 1. On the diplomatic front, I should find a way to secure an alliance with the Coddies and Constantine himself. I also need to secure the state of Illinois, if possible. Finally, I need to make sure the pact with the White Cabal goes well. This is the priority. The ultimate goal would be to become Queen of the Americas. On the power front, I need to keep practicing what I already have until the state situation is resolved, then I need to study magic. Once I have solid foundations, I will keep training and find new and interesting people to consume. Beyond that, I have several opportunities to explore, though they will have to wait. I nod to myself. I had the right to take some well-deserved rest after what I endured. Now, it is time to be a little more proactive. Jonathan joins me an hour later and we sit in his cramped yet comfortable living room, him nursing a cup of tea. I notice the small telltale signs that the man is exhausted and respect the fact that he hides it remarkably well. What did you think about the new recruits? He asks. Not much. Some had potential, some less. They are still horribly green. He nods. You are correct, of course. I hope tonight's ordeal will be a wake-up call for some of them. Like that particularly arrogant team? Yes, them. I will be running them ragged for the next 3 months. Surely you are exaggerating, I lightly object, they showed maturity for such young people. Isn't 3 months too much? Jonathan lifts one imperious brow. Do you know, Ariane, that Cedric made some considerable effort to gather information about you after your encounter? Oh. He is preparing for a rematch. Indeed not. He was trying to find out if you had a boyfriend. I ponder this revelation for a moment. You know what, you are right, beat some sense into them. Sitting before my desk back at the manor 3 days later, I consider the fact that I have made a mistake. Specifically, Urchin claimed he could now write, and though I somehow doubt he could master both orthography and calligraphy in so short a time, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Never again. Urchin, I start, holding his report of what happened in my absence. Yes, milady. During my second life, I have suffered countless indignities. Milady. I have been shot, stabbed, eviscerated, burnt and partially exploded. Yes, milady. I had silver nails driven into my gums and my fingers repeatedly severed with what amounted to a silver-coated gardening tool. Yes, milady. I was driven half-mad by thirst, enslaved, caged and humiliated. Yes, milady. And despite all of that, reading that report of yours is still one of the most grating, disturbing experiences I have ever had to face. I am sorry, milady. It is a nonsensical amalgam of barely readable and horribly misspelled sentences that could not be called English by the most generous of teachers working in an asylum for the criminally insane. Yes, milady. If I were to read this anathema to grammar aloud, I shall surely conjure up a demon, which would then wail in despair at the treatment and promptly beg to be sent back to hell. I apologize, milady. Henceforth, you shall read what you wrote aloud before delivering it to me, and if you cannot make sense of it yourself, you shall write it again. I understand, milady. Or I will go over every mistake and use your own intestines as script to illustrate my points. Very well, milady. You may go, the timing is ill-chosen for your Akkad lesson. Very well, milady, goodbye. I watched the man's retreating back. I remember that I should not be too harsh in my treatment of my own subordinates. However, after what that little scoundrel did to the written art, I could simply not stand by and allow this ignominy to go unpunished. We ride through the woods in silence. Torin did not ask questions when I dragged him from his paperwork, nor did he question me when I told him I needed his help. Instead, he just followed with grim determination. Truly, he is as intense a supporter as he is a lover. I can only be thankful that he is so firm and solid in his character, and that his spirits are always up. That kind of thing. Truly, this relationship has been more fulfilling than I had ever hoped. Métis and I emerge from the dense thicket first, soon followed by Crower and my lover. A small pier stands before us, upon which a canoe waits where I left it. The lights of Boston shine from somewhere on the left, while on our right, the ocean beckons. I dismount and rush to the small ship, but Torin intercepts me and sits first. I will row, he declares, and I let him. We push away from the rickety wood and make for the sea. I direct Torin to a cove and endure the scrutiny of his steely glare. If you are in trouble, my love, tell me now. 2 heads are better than 1. It is nothing bad, I just really need your presence for this, I reply. I am intrigued. Ah, is this it? He asks as we come in view of a one-mast skiff moored not far in the distance. I nod and we approach, then board it. I rented this small ship for 2 days and had one of Wilhelm's men sail it here under the cover of secrecy. So far so good. I climb first and find the packed clothes next to the tiller, just as I instructed. Here, put this on please. I will be right back, I tell Torin. He is looking more bothered by the minute, and yet he still does as I request. I climb down a hatch to the single deck and check around. Behind a row of crates, there is a very comfortable mattress as well as my own disguise. I don it and climb back upstairs. Torin looks just as amazing as I expected in a light blue officer uniform that fits him perfectly. He is currently inspecting the sea, leaning sensually against the railing. The sensual part might be just in my head. Captain. I whisper suggestively. Torin turns and his eyes widen as he takes in my appearance. The scandalous pants, the outrageous open vest that leaves little to the imagination. The tricorn. His mouth forms a perfect O as I place my fists on my waist and push my modest bosom forward, clearly showing that I am not wearing anything underneath. We will be separated for a while to pursue our own projects. I want to make sure he remembers me, and doesn't get any ideas. Then something happens that I was not expecting. He throws his head back and chuckles. The chuckle turns into a cackle, then a full belly laugh that shakes his entire frame. He is still laughing when I push him down. Torin takes a slightly embarrassed expression as I draw him. He is completely naked and stands proudly, looking into the horizon. I, on the contrary, am not naked. I am wearing the tricorn. My hand flows on the paper, drawing lines while I commit the colors to memory. I am distracted by a splash behind me just as Torin looks on with alarm. I turn to see a fish woman staring at us. She smells of magic. Not this kind of night. Shoo! I declare. She does not react. Her eyes are fixed on Torin. No ogling, I warn. She does not reply. A dark tongue slides from her lipless mouth, tasting the air. She then turns to me. Mirari. Strong, she observes with a raspy voice. Then she's off. The carriage stops at the bottom of the manor's ascent next to a small gathering of buildings meant to house less prestigious human visitors. The door opens and I smile as my minions walk out with tired expressions. Sepher requested that I take over a district for her. It will require a solid dose of diplomacy and finesse. For the rest, I will have them. The first to step down is one of the Creek brothers, who took the name Cruz. Cruz wears Western frontier clothes mostly made of leather as well as a war axe which is currently tucked away in his luggage. He greets me with a silent nod and lines up to wait for the others, his one surviving eye coldly inspecting his surroundings. Cruz is a man of few words, even before losing an eye to the Murghole hounds. It is now hidden behind an eye patch that does little to mask the impressive claw scar on his cheek. The second man to climb down is David King, whom I bought in Kentucky, after his father asked this of me as a dying wish. The free man now sports a cowboy hat and a most impressive bushy beard. Oh yes, he will do nicely. He tips his hat and goes by Cruz's side. I eagerly await the next two. First comes John with a beatific look on his horrifying mug. By the Watcher, but did I miss the big oaf? He drags his wife behind him, whom I meet for the first time. 6'3", brown hair, blue eyes. The build and face of a veteran British grenadier. Oh my! I feel so very sorry for their children. If one person's appearance could be improved by being smacked in the face with a brick, it will be what comes out of that, woman's nethers. Watcher, why did I even think about that? Arg. Some things should never be. Unaware of my growing horror, John jumps forth to introduce me to his slightly bashful absolute mudspout of a woman. I smile at the pair and wish them my best wishes for their matrimony, exerting once more all of my self-control and vampiric poise to chase the image of these two together from my vulnerable psyche. John is completely oblivious to my discomfort. He just bounces around with beatific happiness while his snaggle-toothed trog of a wife looks on with a mix of apprehension and distrust I associate with women fearing a rival. I would like to comfort her and assure her that she has nothing to fear, the two of them being in a category of their own. Possibly a species. I refrain. It would be in poor taste to do so, and although I mock the woman's appearance in my mind, I have no reason to offend her in reality. And so, I smile and play the good host. John and his wife shall have a separate house for the duration of their stay while the two others have single rooms in the barracks. Solveig already arranged everything at my bequest. As I am about to turn around, I am surprised to see both Lady Sephaire and Lord Yarrick ride down the slope on nightmares. Jarek's humongous mount makes every mortal take a step back. My dear Ariane, the Hastings woman starts with a honeyed voice, those are your dear associates who will accompany us, yes? What a, colorful lot. Her face betrays nothing and her tone is just as pleasant as before. Still. Have I just been firmly rebuked? I have no idea. They have proven themselves on numerous occasions and will be the more conspicuous members of my retinue, I reply somewhat defensively. Lovely, well, I am sure that you have a lot of catching up to do. Ta-ta, the lady smoothly replies, before leaving. I am still not quite sure whether or not she's mad. Instead of following her, Yarrick climbs down from his monstrous charger and silently steps to John. He's completely ignoring me. I realize with surprise that they are about the same size, which places both in the category of height of people who always bend a bit before entering any buildings. They face off in perfect silence. Then, with slow purpose, Yarrick grunts and takes a strongman posture, contracting arms and chest to display his impressive muscles. John is different. He is not as lean and corded as the ancient vampire. His body is broader but also just a bit softer. He looks a bit less like a trained knight and more like someone who could break a bear's spine with his bare hands then carry the carcass over his shoulder to the nearest town. John turns to me. I don't know what to do so I just sign, go ahead, which means that he will do as he pleases. My loyal defender huffs and puffs and places his fist over his head, his shirt protesting the abuse. 3 buttons are on the very edge of popping, held together by faith and stubbornness. The two hold the pause for a few seconds. Then they both deflate at the same time. They shake hands. Yarrick climbs back on his horse and leaves without a word. He still hasn't acknowledged any of us. I am at a loss. Is this a mortal thing? I turn to John's wife who looks just as helpless as I do. Or at least I'm pretty sure she does. Hard to tell for sure. I take a few seconds to recover, then direct everyone to where they belong. Enough silliness. We have a city to take. The planning phase of the conquest takes me by surprise. I expected many things from Lady Sephaire, a cold and reptilian intellect, an impressive network of informants, a secret army something. I also expected her to give me a precise plan that I would have to follow since she is the leader in this operation. I was terribly wrong. I do not know if the difference stems from culture or her personality, however what is certain is that Sephaire's approach to strategizing is unlike anything I have ever experienced before. And yet, I cannot deny its efficacy. First, she invites me for tea, again, and spends an entire hour questioning me about my takeover of Marquette. How did I proceed? Who did I recruit? What structure did I use? How did I handle the problems I faced? The questions are many and apparently important, since she asks me to elaborate on several occasions, never interrupting me. The next set of questions are even more curious. What opportunities did I miss? What do I regret? I do not understand why she asks these questions, yet I answer, with the belief that she has more experience and a vested interest in her own success. Her inquiries are never personal enough to grate on me, and I have the distinct feeling that she is doing more than just preparing for the next task. She is assessing me as an ally, or even a rival, which we will inevitably become if everything goes well. I have much to learn. Eventually, we move to another table containing a map of the district, and it is then that I realize the full extent of Lady Sephaire's preparations. Washington is not as big a city as I expected from the capital. It is, in fact, 2 counties bound together artificially and placed under the direct control of the federal government. The location itself is the result of a compromise. Before the decision, it was mostly marshland. I am terribly embarrassed that a foreigner would teach me that. In any case, 2 counties make up Sepher's potential territory. To the east of the Potomac River, a federal city harbors the capital and all the other important landmarks. To the west lies the city of Alexandria, an important slave trade location currently in decline, partly due to fear that the federal government will outlaw slavery within its own district. This is where Lady Sepher wants me to focus my efforts since I have just the right set of skills. Alexandria must become my primary source of income and recruits. There are 3 gangs and 2 mage groups I would like you to take over, she says. Subjugate or neutralize? I ask. Goodness me, my dear, you do not mince your words. To answer your question, nobody wants to rule over a graveyard, do they? Whenever possible, I would like you to convince their leader to meet me for negotiations. All in good faith, I assure you. Of course, I expect that some of them may prove unreasonable. Do your best. Force them to negotiate or perish, make examples. Got it. I want you to attend the meeting with their leaders, dear. I am confident that I can teach you a thing or 2, not that you need much. Of course, it would be my pleasure. Lovely. Oh, I am so chuffed. I did not expect that we could start so early. And there lies her genius. She is alone, therefore she does not have the numbers to rule over an entire county, yet. By deliberately choosing a smaller city with a disproportionate political influence, she has made the best use of her means. This begs the question, why is she alone? Someone of her power should have a cadre of masters and courtiers surrounding her at all times. Perhaps she is the first wave, or an experiment, or perhaps it is something more sinister. Once more, I made an alliance with someone I did not fully understand, and while it saved me before, it might just cost me in the future. In truth, I have rushed into the game with clumsy enthusiasm only to realize that I was surrounded by bear traps. Only my friends and Torin's interest have protected me from the consequences of my recklessness so far. This needs to change. Lady Sepher is the one I should emulate. She reveals little, learns much and weighs her decisions. Yes, I am convinced that she knows how to play. I still want to know why she is here, alone. I think about it as the meeting ends and she politely shoos me on my way. Back to my room, I pack my belongings and before I prepare for dawn, I do something I should have done before, ask Salim for a file on Sepher herself. Alexandria, District of Columbia, November 1833. John, Urchin and I are the last to arrive by carriage at the safe house Sepher has prepared for us. Alexandria is bordered in the east by the Potomac River, and the scent of muddy water battles that of misery to assault my senses. We are located at the southern end of town, and even from here I can see that the city was made by design rather than nature. Straight avenues split it in squarish blocks of perfect geometry, affording me and everyone else a commanding view of the land. As I step down, I spot a woman picking her nose 5 blocks away. The contrast between the regular lines and the outward signs of poverty defies logic. How can something planned so thoroughly also be so poor? Derelict warehouses and decrepit buildings outnumber affluent stores by a factor of 5. The people in the street are clad in drab clothes, huddling in large groups and moving around with tense shoulders and shifty eyes. Here and there, manacled slaves shuffle forth under the vigilant eyes of their captors. Slave trade is the lifeblood of the city. Under the purview of the Franklin and Armfield Company, which has the dubious honor of being the largest slave trading business in the United States, thousands of slaves are gathered each year to be sent to their Mississippi, Natchez, and even New Orleans branches. The rest of the city is in economic decline and it shows. I can feel it. In the air floats a general miasma, a scent of anguish and rage, at lost opportunities and robbed freedom. It lacks the beautiful clarity of true anger I sometimes admire in my enemies. Instead, it worms its way in the heart like an insidious infection to sour everything and everyone it can affect. I close my eyes and listen. A few houses away, a man is beating a screaming child. Each meaty impact comes to interrupt an incoherent litany of supplications. It reminds me of Marquette, before I brought order to the chaos. Sometimes, I wonder if the mortals can truly be left to rule themselves. So many of them lack vision and long-term planning. So many struggle for power only to grab onto it with tooth and nail until one of their victims finally manages to take them down, screaming into the abyss. I shake my head. This is not the time to complain. With John, Urchin, and our luggage in tow, I climb up a set of stone stairs to what will be our temporary residence. The house is a 3-story building surrounded by a garden protected from inquisitive eyes by a row of tall aspens. The wooden walls are painted the ubiquitous white, and the interior is soberly furnished and decorated. In other words, this building is completely unremarkable, which is exactly what we need. I will now start the general briefing for this operation. As you all know, our goal here is to take over Alexandria from within, and that means going after every interest group that can stop us and bringing them to heel. I place a few pins on the map as I continue my explanation. Fortunately, we will not have to take over major companies and the government as Lady Sephaire intends to do it herself progressively over the next few months. As for our immediate targets, there are 5, 3 gangs and 2 magic societies. King raises his hand while idly passing a hand in his bushy beard. In order to fit in, he switched from a leather outfit to a more polished suit that marks him as a house slave. With his solid frame and placid face, he looks tame enough not to attract too much attention and intimidating enough that the local thugs will leave him alone. Yes. I offer. How come there are so many? There are less than 5,000 people living here. Good question, I reply. I suspect that the proximity of the capital caused the magic population to increase. As for the gangs, they are caused by a conjunction of poverty, human traffic, and the presence of docks. I do not believe that we will face anything unexpected. Keep your eyes open, in any case. Of course. Now for the plan, our best bet is to go after the different groups one by one, starting with the bottom of the social ladder. That means the gangs. I point to the more affluent part of town. Over here are the federals. They are almost legal, and they offer private security for visitors and businessmen alike. They operate a few loan sharks around town and control this area, so I included them, but I do not expect too much trouble. I will visit them tomorrow evening and talk to their director. The next 2 are more concerning. I point at the docks. The riverside is under the domain of the Potomac Mudmen. They focus on smuggling and protection rackets, mostly, with some illegal fights on the side. They recruit from German and French immigrants and are relative newcomers around here. I then point at the slave pens. Those are the Palm Street Ratcatchers. They are the most numerous group here, and the oldest gang around. They have the habit of starting fires in houses of people they don't like, and since they control the fire brigade, extinguish it just a bit too late. Their other major source of income besides protection rackets is kidnappings. They have agents go over the north and find interesting black freemen, who they proceed to kidnap and sell here. The slaves are carried south, most of the time before they can be rescued. I stop for a moment as King's massive hands clutch the table until the wood groans. Sorry, he whispers, his eyes still shining with barely repressed hatred. As such, I continue, they have the most money and power. Lady Sephaire and I agree that 3 gangs is too many. The Federal's illegal activities will be suspended and one of the remaining groups destroyed. After consideration, we have decided to ally with the Mudmen and destroy the Ratcatchers. King visibly relaxes, while Urchin raises a hand. Yes. I'll take smugglers over kidnappers any day of the week. That said, why not take over the biggest group? I nod to show my support. I encourage inquisitive minds, especially when they are employed in my service. We would prefer to keep this town's social structure mostly intact and cannot do so if the local hierarchy crumbles. The head of the Ratcatchers is a man who goes by Jed the Paunch. He has ruled the streets with an iron fist for the last 10 years with the benediction of the local judge, with powerful lieutenants removed as soon as they became a threat. I estimate that, should I dominate him, he will lose the edge that allowed him to stay in power so far and fall within a week. His personality is simply too paranoid and aggressive to come to an amenable agreement without stripping him of his abilities, I'm afraid. At the same time, there is no heir apparent to replace him should he fall. Any partial removal will lead to a struggle for dominance, so it makes much more sense to destroy the entire leadership in one blow and absorb the rank and file into a pre-existing organization. I pause, considering whether I should share the rest of my thoughts. In the end, I decide to do it. He's also a despicable prick and I want him dead. For some reason, all the others nod in understanding. Right. I will start working on the gang issue after I wake up. Tomorrow, I want King to find us a warehouse on neutral ground. Present yourself as my butler. Feel free to grease some palms. Will do. Cruz, you stand out too much so I need you to stay hidden until we reveal ourselves. The Creek warrior nods silently, a finger trailing the massive scar on his face. He is still wearing his hunter leathers and I see no reason for him to change. Unlike King, he will never fit in here. Good. You should rest tonight. Urchin and I will scout the town. Dismissed. The tables at the King's Inn are spaced enough to grant their occupants some semblance of privacy. The white cloths and silver cutlery give it a luminous sheen, almost enough for everyone to forget the rampant poverty outside. The majordomo leads me forward with a light frown, hinting at the intense disapproval he feels. Mr. Cole is, after all, a married man. The unofficial leader of the Federals gang is an old man with the weathered face of a career soldier. He sits ramrod straight in his chair, holding a book and sipping a tankard of ale. He lifts an imperious brow when I sit at his table without permission. The majordomo hesitates behind me, then decides to beat a hasty retreat. Tonight, I am wearing another elegant dress in pale blue, unassuming yet of good enough make that those who see me would recognize affluence. Cole inspects me, then dismisses me almost immediately. Whatever you're selling, lady, I'm not interested. Indeed, his sin is not lust. I have a letter for you from the Premier Atlantic Bank. I suggest you read it. Now. Cole frowns at my tone, but the mere mention of his main creditor brings fear where there was annoyance. Now, he stares at the piece of paper as if it were a bear trap. It would be in your best interest not to try my employer's patience, Mr. Cole. The veteran businessman knows where this is going, I can tell. He may gamble with his money, and the bank's money, but not with his life. With shaking hands, he opens the missive and reads it with slow purpose. The message is short and unambiguous. We bought all of his debts and can freely repossess his home, his office, and most of his assets. What do you want? He asks in a low voice. His composure does him credit, though I can taste his terror in his stress on his perspiration and in the beating of his heart. The tip of my tongue slides over a fawn. Patience. I am no glutton and there will be ample opportunities later. You are to cease all activities outside of your security business, including those pertaining to Wolf and Jefferson Streets. They will be taken over by my employer. He probably has other activities besides those two loan sharks, but we have not found them yet. He does not need to know that. Anger manages to push his fear away. How do you expect me to repay you if you take away my income? He hisses. An old round lady 2 tables away turns in our direction with the raptor-like focus of the consummate gossip. I lower my voice and lean forward. You will receive a 2 months moratorium on the interest payments if the transition occurs without a hitch. We would hold you personally responsible if something untoward were to happen. I highly suggest you oversee the proceedings yourself. Who the hell are you people? That is not your concern. Good night, Mr. Cole, we will meet again. I stand up and leave the noticeably paler man behind me. The Federals were by far the easiest target. Now, I can begin in earnest. The carriage deposits me in front of the office of the respectable Mr. Jones, harbor master. I knock on the door of the large building and am quickly let in by an annoyed man with a pencil-thin mustache. "What business do you have here?" he asks with as much disdain as he can gather. I ponder having John, who's right behind me, teach him some manners. Unfortunately, we are still in enemy territory and I need to keep a somewhat low profile for as long as I can. Frustrating. Mr. Jones is expecting me. Is he now? Yes, I add, with just a hint of pressure, he is. The infuriating doorman takes in my appearance and finally recognizes the marks of understated wealth. "Apologies, please come in." We follow him inside and up a set of stairs to a cluttered office where the dockmaster awaits us. John takes position by the door, the easy smile on my host's face disappearing immediately. "Are you Miss Lethe?" the old man asks, while nervously cleaning a monocle on an ink-stained waistcoat. "I am. I require an introduction." "An introduction?" "With your friends on Union Street." "By the docks," I continue. At the mention of his less savory acquaintances, Mr. Jones pales. He licks his lips as his eyes search for the exit, finding John in the way. "I am not sure what you mean." "My employer is moving assets and we require additional security," I soberly explain. Jones may look like a pleasant grandfather, but he has used the mudmen on more than one occasion to quell unrest born from the low wages he pays his employees. As far as we can tell, he is one of their primary sources of income. "Just business then?" the dockmaster asks, not believing his luck. I smile congenially. "Indeed. Just business. For now." "Well, I suppose there is no harm," he continues with clear relief. He still casts a dubious look at John. No one in their right mind would look at him and think, peaceful financial transaction. "Let us go, then." We walk along the river. At this time of the night, the silence is only broken by the sobs and prayers of living cargo, their stench and misery permeating the shore. One establishment is still open. The mud shack is a two-story building nestled between two warehouses. It is surprisingly large and well lit, standing proudly as a beacon to drunkenness in the otherwise sleepy street. Men with keen eyes gather in packs, holding tankards in each other while singing rowdy songs. Their workman attire is so similar that they might as well be wearing a uniform. "John, stay there," I order my bodyguard after assessing the crowd. Jones looks back but does not comment and we soon reach the edge of the halo of light surrounding the mudmen's retreat. Immediately, 5 different men gaze at us. When they recognize my companion, they lower their guard, though their eyes still follow me as I make my way to the door. We come in and I see that I was right to leave John outside. The mud shack's main floor is covered with round tables around which a good 40 people have gathered. Not all of them are gang members, there are also dockers and day laborers. They are clearly happy to be there. The only members of the fairer sex are 3 serving girls and a barwoman. Not all gangs are averse to women in their ranks. The rat-catchers employ grifters, con artists and pickpockets while they also have their own ladies of the night. In that case, women usually form a different subgroup within the organization with their own leaders and structure. The alternative is to leave the women home and consider them as civilians. This is the way the mudmen went. If my intuition is correct, I will be received with less suspicion, but it will also be significantly harder for me to be taken seriously. Taking John inside would have been perceived as a challenge. The hollow-eyed barwoman inspects me with palpable hatred. Perhaps it is my new dress, or the fact that I have all my teeth and do not smell like a barack. Who knows? In any case, she quickly weighs my presence against the fact that I am led here by Jones and does what every good subordinate does, she lets her superiors decide. With a quick gesture, she directs us to a back room. I manage to make it through the crowded room without errant hands trying their luck. At least they are well behaved. Without a word, we make it to the back room where 6 pairs of eyes watch us in silence. For belong to poker players armed to the teeth. Guards. Inconsequential. The last two are the power here, the decision makers. I can tell from their fearlessness, their pride, the way they look down upon us despite our superior social status. They make me want to kill them here and now, watch the horror and the pain in their eyes as I slaughter every last one of them and claim the place as my own. The drive to kill surges in my heart, only to be extinguished just as quickly. I am patient. They will bow, in the end. This is just a small part of the true game. Jones? Who is this? Ah, my dear Ritter, this is Miss Lethe from Boston. She asked me to introduce the two of you. I take in the leader of the Mudmen. Ritter is a man of medium height in his early 40s. He has the body of a worker gone to fat, with a potbelly and solid arms. His hair sprouts from his scalp in undisciplined clumps, but his mustache is perfectly groomed, and his light blue eyes show cunning and impatience in equal measures. His companion is much younger, with shoulder-length sandy hair and clear brown eyes. He wears the same attire as the rest of the gang with some extra attention to his appearance, like a colored scarf and a necklace. Just enough to be noticed. I decide that he is probably a protégé. Hear that, lads? We're famous, Ritter says with a gravelly voice. His stooges chuckle obligingly. I have two ways to do this. I could play the temptress, mixing elegance with just a bit of flirtation. This would position me as a traditional woman and guarantee a polite distance. It could, however, backfire when they realize they will be working for Lady Sephaire. The second way is to come out as an off-man. It would deprive me of my civilian status, in exchange for a more equal relationship. I will go with that. I step forward, overtaking Jones. Immediately, the smiles turn to cold masks. My employer believes we have a common problem. Who is that employer and what problem would that be? We will remain anonymous. I don't think you will, the man says as he stands up. Jones retreats to the side while the guards form a half-circle at my back. Ritter closes the distance between us with his pretty boy by his side. He invades my personal space. His breath reeks of cigar. Now, he begins, then stops when he feels the cold business end of a concealed pistol pointing at his unmentionables. Too close. Slaughter the sheep. No. Our eyes meet. I do not try to charm him as there is no need. Then, slowly, Ritter smiles. You've got stones, woman, I'll give you that. With a hand wave, he sends his men to sit back down and takes a respectful step back. He walks back to his desk and pours himself a glass of liquor. I'll hear you out, but watch your words. We want the rat-catchers gone. That got their attention. I hear gasps and accelerating heartbeats all around as they realize the enormity of what I just said. To me, the rat-catchers are just one hurdle on the path, but to them, it has been the dominating force in Alexandria for years. Always, they have had to live with that shadow. If it were so easy, we would have done it already, woman. You want to bring in an army? I only need access to their leaders, including Jed the Paunch. We will take care of the rest. Wallace scoffs, his disdain clear. He does not think much of outsiders, an arrogance born from half a decade of unchallenged power. He is wrong. It is a mistake to believe that a stable situation will remain so in the future. A crown can be lost in a day. I hope that Jed has formed a similar bias. Eventually, greed and hope overtake the man's caution. I can tell that he does not truly believe I will be successful. It is chaos that sways him, and hope that I will upset the rat-catchers enough to damage their position in the city. In 3 days, there will be a death dance. It's an underground tournament that occurs every year with a good amount of money to be won. All of the rat-catchers' leaders will show up with their champions. Not that it matters. The Crusher is undefeated. A contest of pugilists. Bare-knuckled, vicious fighting. Crusher's been earning his nickname for a while now. Only the desperate and the insane join the fight now. Fresh faces looking to make a name, debtors, slaves looking for freedom, take your pick. It's still bloody fun. Just, people bet on how long the guys will last. Do they accept new entries? Yeah, you can join the tournament, but didn't you hear a word I say? Whoever you throw in there's either defeated by a contestant or killed by that monster. I cannot help the slow smile creeping on me. All of the Ratcatcher leadership under a single roof. A distraction. This is just perfect. Do not concern yourself, Herr Ritter. I have just the man. I miss the opera. The entertainment is better, and the spectators at least make a token attempt at maintaining personal hygiene. The Ratcatcher's death dance venue is a repurposed warehouse with a circle of sand in its midst overlooked by rickety lodges. I am in such a lodge now, with Urchin by my side. All of the remaining ones are occupied by the Ratcatcher leadership. On occasion, Jed the Paunch will invite one of his subordinates for a private talk that will leave the poor bugger pale and sweaty. I can track the small signs of concern on his rotund face. Even from here, I see the grease-stained shirt straining to hold his expanding gut. He does not even have a neck. Instead, his repulsive face is ringed by a circle of worm-like flesh covered with coarse hair. I bet I could run a lantern for weeks on the fat of his body. I would not, of course. The stench. His concern is well deserved. John has gone through the brackets like a stiletto through the skin, taking everyone by storm. None so far managed to stem the placid violence of the man they have come to call Jolly John. My faithful servant is far from invincible. He lacks the adaptability and quick thinking that defines true genius. He does have his strong points. I remember Ritter, the Mudmen boss, telling me that he was too soft. The gang leader took a look at my aide and dismissed him as powerful but otherwise harmless. Not a true warrior. He is somewhat correct, John will not fight as a first reaction. He is pure and innocent, unwilling to hurt those around him. Unless, of course, I give him the order. The beauty of perfect control is that John fights with no hesitation and no remorse. If I order a man killed, that man must die. It is right, because Ariane ordered it, and so it shall be. And killed he has. When I picked him up in Marquette, John was skeletal. It took me a full year to have him recover enough to work. Since then, he has been my bouncer, bodyguard and on occasion, knee-breaker. The truth is, John is both very well trained and experienced. His perfect memory extends to patterns and techniques, and though he does not always understand which one to use, he is quick to remember even the most complex of instructions. The result is an incomprehensible warrior with savagery but no ego, technique but no imagination, and caution without fear. I considered using Urchin in his stead, unfortunately, it would not do. Urchin is still too raw to win without moving at an unnatural speed and he is also quite short. In the minds of people, pugilists must be big and brawny. If he wins too often and too strangely, it will not only attract undue attention. He will also be accused of cheating. Image is everything in entertainment. As a result, I have relied on John. Tonight, we have gathered for the final match. Around the arena, men and women sit on chairs, crates and anything else they could get their hands on. Alcohol and conversations flow free in a strident cacophony. Scantily clad girls cling to the arm of the more well-off gang goons while others, the grifters and con artists, gather in mocking groups who tease passing men and sometimes even relieve them of their purses. Some attendants drink, some scream, and a few have even set up an improvised ring where the hot-blooded may get a sample of the spectacle to come. The smell of sweat both fresh and old mixes with that of old wood and spilt beer to form the classic mix I expect from frontier watering holes. The main difference is the energy. The taint of despair permeating the city here turns into frenetic and deleterious energy. Hearts pump fresh blood to minds already intoxicated by the promise of violence and blood to be shed. I see it in their frantic eyes, the way they lick their lips and the manner in which they track movement at the periphery of their vision, hunting, searching, waiting for the coming of the gladiators. For those who will kill and die to enter the fray. Ave Caesar, morituri te salutant. Hail Caesar, those who will die greet you, captives used to say. But alas, the Colosseum here is a decrepit dump and the imperator was replaced by a bulging sphere of suet, a disgusting mass that not even the most corrupt of emperors would have devolved into. Sometimes, life is a tragedy. Sometimes, a farce, and here the first act. A man appears from the changing rooms as if by magic, wearing an impeccable black suit over a white shirt. He holds a top hat in his gloved hands, which he waves about to attract the crowd's attention. Progressively, the humdrum of conversation dies down until his stentor's voice prevails over the remaining din. Ladies and gentlemen, fine people of Alexandria, good evening. The moment you have been waiting for has finally come. Tonight, two men will give it their all in a contest of brawn and will. Tonight, two men will enter the arena for your greatest pleasure and tonight, only one will come out. The audience screams with bloodlust. This is what they are here for. Please enjoy this show brought to you by your host, Jedediah Collins. The toad-like creature slightly bends forward while the crowd applauds, momentarily sobered. For one moment, I wonder if he will collapse under his own weight. Fortunately for him, gravity proves itself unequal to the task of felling him. It appears that I have to provide a helping hand. And now, for our first contestant. He has taken the tournament by storm, defeating one opponent after another. The frontier felon, the simple savage, the man from the West who goes after the best. He has shown that he's not a man to be trifled with, and his fists could chip rock. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you John Doe. The audience yells and jeers, the support from outsiders and equal opportunity enthusiasts barely enough to cover the booing fury of the most fervent rat-catchers. John follows a pretty girl inside while from the changing room, I catch a glimpse of King giving me the all normal sign. So, Jed did not try to hedge his bets. Color me surprised. He must have complete faith in his champion. John looks impressive in a thin white shirt that shows exactly how impossibly massive he is. His ugly face is calm, showing no emotion at all. He searches me and finds me above him in the lodges. Our eyes meet and I nod to him. John has his instructions and he will follow them to the best of his abilities, this I can count on. I saw the Crusher fight. I give my servant an even chance to win. Of course, the plan does not rely on his victory and should he be too much at risk, I would intervene. I will not lose John over some silly influence game. What matters is the diversion the fight provides. The rat-catchers are on their home ground and the Crusher is a kind of legend himself. They want to see him win. They like to see him win. The bloodier, the better. The sheer emotional investment will keep their attention below, while Urchin and I can do what we came to do. But in the challenger's path lies a man we know and love. A man we fear. A man who eats steel and spits out nails for breakfast. A man who has ruled this arena undefeated for the past few of years. Can you bring him? Can you call his name? The crowd, only too eager to obey, summons their champion with that very peculiar mob voice born of 100 throats. Crusher. Crusher. And the man obliges. Jumping out from behind the curtain leading to the changing room, the rat-catcher champion, Jed's bodyguard and lunatic extraordinaire, struts forward. He practically jumps on his feet. Now I realize why Jed did not take the chance to poison or incapacitate John. He believes he has no need. I have seen intoxicated men in my life, including those who become irrationally aggressive under the influence of alcohol, and the Crusher is at the deep end. Whatever Jed fed his attack dog is an order of magnitude more malicious. The Crusher's scarred face shines with nervous perspiration. The dark orbs of his eyes shift, bloodshot and manic, then dart over the room before landing on John with monomaniacal intensity. He licks his flush lips with a bloated tongue. I can see veins pulsing under his shaved scalp. This man is insane. If he was not before, he is now. Useless. Broken tool. The madman steps into the sand ring to everyone's great enjoyment. He grunts and hollers, and the crowd echoes him in great waves of screams. Like a broken chorus. Oh, do I miss the opera? Finally, the room settles enough for the announcer to order everyone out of the fighting grounds. Employees darken lanterns until only the ring itself is fully visible to mortal eyes. John stands placidly at one end, as calm and gathered as if he were at dinner. Facing him, the crusher paces on his side like a caged beast. Spittle foams at the corner of his mouth as he growls and mutters imprecations. Let the fight begin. I clutch the railing before me, feeling a change in the atmosphere. It tastes like inevitability. The crusher jumps forward, only to stop a few feet away from John, who is already prepared to receive him. My servant stands low with a fist forward, offering as little a target as possible. Even then, he looms over his opponent. As for the crusher, his guard is more fluid as he jumps from side to side. His muscles are lean and corded and he looks like one solid mass of spite. The crusher likes to fake an attack from a side, then attack from the other side. Like this. Yes, Ms. Ari. I have watched the crusher's previous matches. The man has predictable patterns for those who know how to look. It would not matter to most, as the man can win most matches through speed, strength and unbridled violence alone. It matters to John, and so I trained him for hours in preparation for the confrontation by imitating his foe's most common moves until he could defend against them. The feint does not work, though the strike was still too fast for my servant to dodge completely. The uppercut slides along ribs while the crusher pulls back and manages to deflect the counter-attack from smashing his face to just impacting his shoulder. The crowd roars. They have a match, and we have our distraction. I signal Urchin, who opens the door leading to the platform outside and the stairs leading below. A man in a stained waiter uniform turns his head when he notices us. Urchin bids him come closer with a gesture. The man blinks and his eyes turn glazed. He closes the distance while I put on my mask, in case I get spotted. Urchin seizes the waiter by the throat and kills him, gesturing with his left hand to take the man's falling platter before it can hit the ground with a clang. Then, we are off. I turn left while he turns right. As the crowd roars, I open the door to the next lodge to the surprise of one of Jed's lieutenants and his bodyguard, slicing their throat under the cover of bloodthirsty screams. In the ring, John and the crusher probe each other's defenses with quick jabs and the occasional low kick. I look at the dead man at my feet. Harry the Minge, according to Urchin's intelligence gathering. He was responsible for the Ratcatcher's staff from task distribution to recruitment. Next lodge, Velvet, the gang's resident madam. On the opposite side of the circle, Urchin steals a gun before it can be fired and practically decapitates Elbow Jim, the head of their protection racket. Our eyes meet briefly. He is doing well. Below, the exchange between combatants is getting fierce. He will try to grab you. When he does, he will look like this. And move like this. Grab his neck if you can, keep your arms free and turn around. Urchin, give me a hand. Yes, Ms. Ari. The crusher throws a right hook then dives, taking one of John's legs. John immediately encircles the other man's neck and leans forward, using his free leg to maintain his balance. He moves backwards and to the side when his foe presses on and otherwise punches him in the ribs. After a few seconds the crusher gives up. He pushes John back with a parting left jab that hits my servant in the temple. John retaliates by digging his left foot in the sand and throwing a devastating right kick that catches the madman in the thigh and sends him reeling. John shakes his head and starts moving again. The crowd is on fire. In the lodges, Fast Jack and Crude Kurt die a silent death. In the ring, the fight gains in intensity as both opponents get used to each other and start taking risks. Most blows are dodged, deflected or blocked, but still they fight with bare knuckles, and the sounds of impact is loud enough for even mortals to perceive over the whispers and jeers. John is still fine, but he is just one simple man, while Jed's drug-fed hound looks too excited to feel anything. He even laughs after some of the strikes. Fight defensively. You don't have to win, alright? You just need not to lose. Be safe. Yes, Ms. Ari. I will be careful. Both combatants are bloody. John is slowed, and I see some anguish on his normally unflappable face. He is in pain. My servant. No, I must trust him. Mortals should never be underestimated, and this applies to the ones I picked myself. Pride is ever our greatest weakness, and to think only I can be depended upon is a clear sign of it. Let them make mistakes and suffer. It is also how I grew. Instead of acting, I moved to the last lodge. Below, the fight is taking a turn for the worse. The Crusher is still not feeling pain. His attacks are relentless and drive John into a corner. My servant buckles. His breath is panicked, pained, and too fast. I need to hurry. I enter the last lodge on my side, just as Urchin disappears to complete his last objective. Jed is bent forward, staring at the show before him while munching on a chicken leg. Half-cleaned poultry bones litter the ground at his plump feet. 2 bodyguards turn when I come in. I kill them with a dagger through the brain and hold their bodies as they fall. Yeah, kill him. Jed blurts. A piece of chicken skin glides through the air, leaving behind a trail of spittle. Need to act fast. I step forward, then stop. Beneath us, the Crusher had been increasingly red tonight. Now though, I notice that he is a strange shade of purple. Could it be? The Ratcatcher champion stops. He raises a hand to his heart, frowns. John stops hyperventilating. He takes one last seismic breath and lowers his turtle stance. Ms. Ari? Yes, John. Do you want me to win? If possible, yes, John. I very much want you to win. Alright, Ms. Ari. John bellows. The yell pierces through the screams, the laughs, and the encouragements. It pierces through the smacked furniture and applauses. It pierces through the very night as John moves. His fists blur as he abandons any pretense at defense or even at breathing. Then, John goes to town. The Crusher attempts to protect himself, in vain. John is a hurricane of knuckles and imbecilic rage, as relentless and unimaginative as an avalanche. Punch, 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 kick, punch. He does not relent, not even to breathe, and the flurry of blows eventually pierces through his foe's guard, first with glancing blows, and then more consistently. The champion stumbles to the side, offering his back to John, who smashes the exposed neck with a 2-handed hammer blow. The Crusher is not even screaming anymore. John circles the man's neck with his massive arm and turns around, lifting the bruiser as if he were a bag of grain. Then he places the man's neck on his own shoulder, his own 2 hands under the jaw, and pulls. The snapping sound resonates like thunder. Wow! The Crusher's corpse falls to the ground, the head at an impossible angle. I do not know what to say. Silence, sudden, deadly silence spreads over the room. It is over. I was not expecting this at all. You did it, you magnificent bastard. You won. John, bloody and hurt, covered in shades of expanding red and blue, John the underdog, but John victorious, turns to the crowd and lifts his humongous hands up. Who's the dumbass now, huh? Huh? Cries of outrage now sound across the room. Jed somehow manages to jump to his feet, thus violating several rules of physics and inertia. He points a wavering finger at the man below him, who robbed him of his prizefighter. His shrill voice cuts through the chaos. Seize him. Yeah. Many heads turn to us at the interrupted speech, their eyes going wide as saucers as they register at the gang boss is bent forward over the railing by a woman in a mask holding a pistol. Screams of fear and surprise now overcome those of anger. The mob shifts and roils, looking around at the noticeably empty lodges. I like that moment. The reveal. The moment they realize their castle of cards is folding after almost 10 years of stability. All it took for us was to open the door and the winds of change sent the whole edifice crumbling. They realized their strength was merely an unchallenged weakness. And the thing the survivors of the purge to come will remember is that one white mask, basked in the light of dimmed lanterns above the bleeding corpse of their deposed tyrant. I pull the trigger. The detonation is deafening. A woman faints as pieces of brain splatter in and around her cleavage. That will not wash off. Some rush to the exit, some try to climb up, some go for the stairs. John is long gone, using the confusion to slip away with the help of King and Cruz. I shoot my other pistol at a man grabbing a rifle for good measure and throw a lantern into the small bar on the side, then calmly leave the lodge. Watcher, it feels amazing to let go a little after all those days spent skulking around. I take a deep breath, regret it instantly, and join Urchin near the stairs. He holds under his claws a dazed accountant desperately trying to keep his monocle from hitting the ground. Is that him? Yes, milady. Good. Let us be off. We find a window and jump down next to utter chaos. Outside of the warehouse, a large group of mudmen carrying truncheons were waiting for the signal to engage the fleeing rat-catchers who are, quite ironically, caught like rats in the ensuing ambush. The combatants are now engaged in a desperate melee, with my allies acting like you would expect from someone with a blunt weapon, a target, and 5 years of pent-up frustration. I quickly close the distance where my men are standing, next to a miserable John. How are you, dear? It hurts, Ms. Ari. Let's have a look, I announce as I grab a first aid kit from a nearby barrel. We are at the back of the mudmen lines and already a few concussed idiots are dragging themselves away. Miss? Could we go? I turn my attention to Cruz who unexpectedly talked first. I arch a brow in wonder. You mean? He silently points at the ongoing brawl. Fair enough, be sure to return before dawn, yes. And don't kill any allies. Thanks. And off he goes. Next is King who raises a surprisingly delicate hand. You too. Do you have any ideas how many times those assholes called me AN? Oh, very well, off you go then. Same instructions. King sprints away, gaining speed before jumping feet first into a rat-catcher's face. Milady, Urchin asks in turn. Seriously? I'm a bit thirsty as well. Just go, I'll keep an eye on our guest, I add, as I look at Urchin's captive currently hugging the floor and whimpering. My minion goes off to join his comrades in arms while I tend to John's many cuts and bruises. Nothing broken, apparently, but he should still rest for at least a week. I won, the large man observes. That you did, John, it was an impressive fight. It was hard, he continues in a soft voice, then after a while, he was smaller but it was still so hard. I continue cleaning and bandaging. I thought I was the strongest besides you. Now there are other strong people, like Urchin. Or that man with the gray hair. And that very tall man at the castle. There are many people and they are all very strong. Stronger than me. What can I do? I am not special anymore. I am just dumb now. You do not need to be the smartest or strongest to be by my side. Besides, the Crusher cheated, I interrupt him, trying to assuage his fears. Is it the kind of cheat that makes him lose the match if people know? With the announcer in Jed's pocket? On their home ground? Not a chance. John reads my silence with surprising accuracy. Then it does not matter that he cheats. John, you can't be the best at everything. I am not the best at everything. We can only improve ourselves and rely on each other, yes. I want to be the best, he replies softly, looking into the distance. In a way, I understand him. It feels good to be respected for your expertise, even if others share it. I am not sure what to say. For the first time since I picked him up more than a decade ago, I have not managed to convince him. John spends the rest of the night in silence. The man urchin scouted then captured was in charge of the ratcatcher's purse. With his enthusiastic contribution, we managed to recruit, eliminate or exile all of the remaining gang members as well as seize their assets in less than a week. The violence and suddenness of the assault gives them no time to recover and regroup. Soon enough, the Mudmen are left in charge of Alexandria's network of criminal activity. On a whim, I decide to allow Cruz and King to handle the returning flesh traders coming here from the north to sell their kidnapped victims. They worked well and I find the reward appropriate. The warehouse we purchased at the western edge of town soon becomes loaded with war prizes, legal documents and other confiscated goods. I spend a large amount of time suppressing reactions to our little takeover by convincing officials and journalists that they should focus on something else, for their health. This leaves me little opportunity to handle the rest and I end up accepting more than 15 new recruits who prefer to join me instead of the Mudmen. I end up using them for patrols and intelligence. As for our allies, Ritter is fully occupied with glutting himself on the spoils of his erstwhile rival. The few times we meet, I obtain a new reaction I had expected. Fear. The tales of the masked woman fly around town from gossips to taverns. Most cannot attach a face to those rumors. He can, and he does not seem to be enjoying the experience. I understand him easily. I have already replaced one boss, why not another? As a result, he was more than eager to meet my employer, if only to avoid being next in line in the reshaping of Alexandria's underground power structure. That does not stop me from planting a few suggestions through charm and bite among his most valuable subordinates, of course. I would be an idiot to trust him and his willingness to cooperate. Soon, we have a perfect map of the Mudmen and their assets, just in case we end up requiring a more aggressive approach to their management. Once I decide that the situation is well enough in hand, I approach Urchin as he polishes his shoes near our de facto armory. He has taken my remarks to heart and gives more attention to his appearance now. The result is, well, better. I need to work on his poise more in the future. He does not walk, he lurks. Urchin. Milady. It has been a month since you became my follower, and you have now completed your first full operation in a satisfactory manner. I am pleased with your service. For some reason, the poor Vanheim courtier looks on in alarm. I can only presume that no one ever paid him any compliment without following it with a particularly horrifying betrayal. Thank you. As such, I want to bestow upon you this gift I made, I add, and offer him a small box. It contains a curved dagger made of a steel and silver alloy I made myself at the manor, with inlays enchanted at great cost by one of Wilhelm's retainers. The result is both elegant and deadly, allowing the wielder to stab and slice to his heart's content. The poor lad opens the box with reverent eyes, even waits for my approval to pick the weapon. He caresses its surface with his marginally less grubby hands and wonders at its exquisite make. I am quite proud of the result myself. No one has ever offered me anything. It's beautiful. I am delighted to hear it. This blade will serve you well in the struggles to come. We are doing well so far, are we not? He mentions while looking at the plunder we gathered. Indeed. Sadly, this was the easiest target by far. We had good intelligence, the element of surprise and 2 vampires while they had no forewarning, no faith, and no magic. There was no real way for us to fail at this stage barring glaring incompetence. Those mages we must convince will certainly oppose us at first. You will have to be ready. Against all expectations, Urchin jumps to his feet and stands tall and proud. In his case, it means he reaches just slightly below my nose. It is an honor to fight by your side, milady. You can count on me. I shall be a tremendous watermelon. He then proceeds to bow with great energy, his beret falling from his scalp on the muddy ground. We are not quite there yet. Our next target designates itself when one of our newest recruits comes rushing the very same night. Boss lady, you said to tell you if there's anything weird going on, right? What have you found? Well, you know that bookshop you asked me to look at, there are at least 20 people that went in, right? Yes, and? It's been 3 days and not a single one has come out. Problematic. At the northern end of town, hidden between a cattle feed shop and a small glassmaker, stands the Alexandria shop of books rare and precious for the discerning gentleman. I immediately noticed 2 major issues. The first, neither Urchin nor I are gentlemen. Second, there is absolutely no way that 20 people would fit in there unless the building also sports an extensive underground network, a stupid idea this close to the Potomac. Hypothetically, if a mage wanted to slay a vampire, an effective way would be to attract them into a closed environment then detonate it. It is how I would do it. At the same time, I was not baited nor do I have any reason to go there myself. Urchin, we will go down and ask some questions. If I tell you to start running, you do. I understand, milady. I gather my dress and we drop down from a nearby roof, then cross the deserted street to the entrance of the store. The curtains are fully drawn and the door, locked tight. I easily perceive enchantments of warning and reinforcement engraved into the solid frame. Those are permanent works and not the shoddy labor of a caster who expects to up and leave at the first opportunity. The perspective of some elaborate trap grows more unlikely by the minute. Only the most fanatical madmen would draw their enemies in the heart of their domain and destroy it around them. Satisfied, I do the most logical thing. I bang on the door. Urchin looks at me, askance, and I feel the need to explain. Lady Sephaire bid us bring the mages to the negotiation table. There is no need for us to antagonize them if they bend willingly. Are those men likely to accept her dominion? Some will not, but some may, and it is them that will be of use in the coming years, I reply as I keep smashing the wooden frame. I see, Urchin replies thoughtfully. A moment later, the curtains part and reveal a panicked young man hastily fixing a monocle on one of his pale blue eyes, growing it to comical proportions. He bites an already bloodied lip and comes to a decision, opening the door between us. We were closed. I am not here for the books, I reply with a glacial tone. Oh, thank God, you are here to help. Right? Did someone get my message? A message? Well, no reason to waste this opportunity. I give him my most genial smile and answer. Why yes, I am certainly here to help. Why don't you let us in and tell us everything we need to know? Of course, of course. Sorry. We follow the man, apparently a clerk if his sweaty clothes are any indication, to a short counter surrounded everywhere by bookshelves filled to the brim by tomes of all ages and sizes. The air smells stale, the stench of the man's ripe sweat overloading the delicate scent of aging paper. Powerful waves of magic surge from a massive cabinet placed against a wall on the right, the apparently unused space an anomaly in the otherwise cluttered store. The clerk sits down heavily into a battered chair, sending a loaded pistol clattering on the ground. I note with interest that the seat is facing the aforementioned cabinet. Oh, where are my manners? My name is Eric Booth. And, who might you be? My name is Ariane and this is my assistant, Urchin, I reply with a light smile. I do not use charm, as I do not think it necessary. This man is desperate. He wants us to be his saviors and his addled brain will naturally omit all the little details that should arouse his suspicion. No last name? Yes, my apologies. It's just I was getting desperate. It has already been a day, you see. Why not start from the beginning? Right. So, the head librarian gathered everyone for his experiment, right? That was 3 days ago. I don't know much about what they were doing, only that it related to aligned spheres and some such, all hush-hush spell thingies, right? Oh no, please no. So, I was there last night minding my own business when I heard a terrible sound, like breaking metal. It was coming from the portal. I was close at that time, so I jumped up and went to open it. The first thing to do when magic acts erratically is to take cover and find protective equipment. This man is an absolute moron. So, I open it without worry and I hear the most horrendous screams. As if, people were eaten alive. I suggest helpfully. I guess. Hold on, you don't think, the clerk replies fearfully. Please go on. Noticeably paler, the clerk continues with his recollection. I was looking down the stairs and then the light started to flicker. Then after a while, I heard a noise, like something really heavy walking forward. I panicked and I closed the door and I've been waiting here ever since. I managed to get a kid to send a message to Magister Schultz. He must have received it since you're here. Urchin hides his mouth behind a sleeve and whispers in a voice that only I pick up. There is a Schultz who died yesterday. He is the talk of the city, on account of dying after the consumption of an excessive amount of aphrodisiacs. It could be the same person. I would not be surprised. I did not know what to do, so I just took a pistol and waited in front of the door. I only left to go to the lavatories, make food, make tea and find the 1628 version of Don Quixote that had gone missing. The world is doomed. Thank God you're here now. Indeed, I replied drily, I would like to have a look at the library now. But you are not exactly armed. I take a long silver dagger from a sheath at my back and wave it under the clerk's nose. Tonight, I am not wearing my armor but a light gray traveling dress plus hood, currently lowered. Urchin wears a black ensemble under his unfortunate beret. The clerk swallows nervously before looking at my companion currently spinning my gift in the air. He then materializes two throwing knives from a side pocket and starts juggling. Right away then. While the man fumbles with a keychain, I open the cabinet out of curiosity. 3 empty ink pots and a crude drawing. The clerk rushes by me, closes the door, locks and unlocks it. Along the frame, metal decorations in curls and spikes glow gold before fading away. The magic pulses once, then fades back to normal. Eric Booth pulls the door open, steps back and gestures wildly. Welcome, miss, to the Library of Alexandria. I walk forth, speechless. My hand caresses a marble wall engraved with images of scrolls and books. Monumental stairs descend onto a platform below, lit by shining blue orbs fixed on the walls by sconces of polished bronze. Their shimmering glow reflects in the odd square of golden sheath discreetly integrated into nearby carvings. With every step, the light shifts to focus on another detail, another scene. Here, the Titan Prometheus grants fire to mankind, before being punished by an outraged Zeus. There, a Renaissance scholar dissects a man's body before an assembly of his peers. Astronomers work side by side with dragons, mathematicians with sphinxes in an impossible festival of colors. Runes in all shapes and sizes flash before my eyes, harmless yet distracting by their sheer number. Still amazed, I finally attain the landing to find myself in a circular room. Filled bookshelves cover the walls. 2 alcove doors lead left and right, while right in front of us, glassless windows with a stone railing show similar openings in the distance as if we were part of a building around a circular inner court of massive proportion. I do not see the floor from where I stand. This place is awesome. By the Watcher, I wish Torin were here to see this. Is this library as large as it looks? A hidden depository of magical knowledge exists here, below my feet. How I wish to explore it, plumb its occulted depths in the search of rare tomes and fantastic knowledge. I could spend years here, caressing those august spines and searching through ink of red and gold for that one pearl of wisdom, that one exquisite manuscript. Excited, I pick a book at random, marveling at the quality of the preserved leather cover. I turn it around to read the title. De Contemptus of Leuve and Evil Weemen, cum commento. Scottish poetry as compiled by George Bannatyne, a merchant of Edinburgh. Well. I mean. It would be unfair of me to expect all of them to be life-changing masterpieces. Ah, this just ruined the mood. Bah, never mind, I am here to purge and subjugate. I shall not let such trifling matters affect me. Really. On a side note, I see no trace of eldritch invaders from another dimension just quite yet. There is, however, a strange beastly musk in the air as well as the stench of stale blood and wastes, the source of which I promptly find. To the side of the room's only desk, I find a ghastly pile of purple leavings. What is that? Urchin the city boy asks with a mix of disgust and fascination. A massive pile of excrement, I suggest helpfully. He stares at me, askance, before coming to a revelation. Oh, I know this one. You just used a metaphor, right? I'm afraid not. My fellow vampire appears troubled by the droppings. I suppose that both the size and the unusual color are a cause for worry. Ah, and speaking of the devil. Mr. Booth, go back up the stairs please. Urchin, come here, I order. The Vanheim vampire looks at me uncomprehending. Take out your dagger. He materializes it mechanically. If I do not miss my guess, indeed not, I announce casually as heavy footsteps sound from a side corridor. Soon after, a head made of a large open maw surrounded by questing tendrils emerges from the door, sniffing the air with the power of a forge's bellow. What the hell is that? Urchin hisses, panicked. Tut tut, language, I chastise him, that is a Murghole Manor hound and you're going to kill it. Silence reigns as the creature steps in and turns towards us. I am. Urchin squeaks. In answer, I boot the vile creature back from whence it came as it jumps at us and then gently push Urchin forward. It shall be your first time facing an inhuman opponent. Enjoy the practice, and do your best. Thankfully the creature does not call for its brethren as it throws itself on Urchin with abandon. This specific hound looks like one of the middle-sized ones we faced near Marquette, with several physical differences that could be due to any number of factors. This creature's skin is purple, it is shorter and stockier than the others and possibly stronger, though it lacks grace. I encourage Urchin as he does his best to fend the creature off. To the left. No, the other left. Focus, Urchin, you're faster than it. Do not concern yourself with that knife, you can just fetch it back with your power. Good one. Stab under the maw to free yourself now. That is fine, Urchin, you don't even need all those fingers. They will regrow. And finally, because I am losing patience and the smell of Eric Booth's empty bowels are trying my patience. By the Watcher, Urchin, are you a sheep or a vampire? It is prey, pathetic and filthy. Kill it. Kill it now. With one last scream of rage and desperation, my subordinate jumps on the creature's back and stabs its spine, flanks and neck repeatedly until the thing stops moving. Behind him, a rumble announces the arrival of some more of the pack. I suppose we were a bit noisy. I will be right back, I declare. I enter the corridor and find 3 hounds and, on the ground, an old splash of blood with bits of mangled fabric. I stab the first hound in the heart as it passes by, cleave through the second one's neck and break the spine of the third just for variety's sake. In this narrow corridor, they had to come after me one by one, making them easy targets. I clean purple blood from my long dagger on a nearby tapestry depicting a man conversing with a devil, then return to my allies. Urchin is on the ground, looking a bit blankly at the alien corpse before him. Booth is slowly stepping away from us and towards the entrance. That should be all for now. Urchin, stand up. The man obeys. And you, Booth, come back here, I order without even a bit of compulsion. The man is a wimp and a glorified doormat, used to taking orders without question. "Give me the key," I order, and extend a hand in which he places the golden and intricate object. "What sort of mages are you?" he asks with a trembling voice. "The sort that can defeat those creatures," I reply. He just accepts the explanation without complaint. I do not understand why a secretive organization would not use their best agents to guard the gates. This level of oversight is beyond ridiculous, a sign of unwarranted confidence and a complete lack of common sense. Now that I think about it, those morons apparently opened a portal and got eaten as a result, so I should not expect too much. All that knowledge and no brains. Disappointing. Now, I need to check something. Wait here. I approach the window to the inner court and look out and down. Right above me, a ceiling imitating a night sky blocks the way up, indicating that we are on the topmost level of the library. Below, the structure continues over 7 floors before ending on a large circular plaza of white and black tiles, over 50 paces across. In its center, an elevated platform of rose stone serves as a ritual locus. It also serves, for now, as a portal between dimensions. A large crack in the very air tears the veil between realities in a show so strange that my mind revolts at the sight, my eyes slipping away from the rift. The edges of the opening glide senselessly inside of the circle, painting the room in ever-changing shapes of magenta. As I watch, another hound crashes in, then shakes its maw and bickers with one of its siblings already pacing the hall. Creatures such as this one patrol the ground, sniffing at demolished furniture, pools of blood, and each other. Their grunts and huffs offer a disturbing counterpoint to the portal's steady hum. Of the mages, very little remains, most of it smeared on the ground. The runes of the portal flare wildly one after the other without apparent rule. Every 5 seconds or so, the rift rotates abruptly. This spell is far from being stable, and there is also a good chance that the Murghole hounds disrupt it by their very presence. They do feel queer, the aura around them empty and deleterious. If they truly are magical scramblers, I can already see a few problems looming. One of the first lessons he taught me was the importance of safety. He would drill it into my mind until it became second nature. I still carry in my mind the lessons he shared. If it's unstable, it's gonna explode, and it's gonna explode in your face, he would say. And other pearls of wisdom. If it can splash on your fingers, it can splash in your eyes, on your feet, and on the neighbor's dog. Measure twice, cast once. And finally, my favorite. It's only when I'm elbow deep in quicksilver at my arse starts to itch. That last one I was thankfully spared due to my immortal nature. One must note that Loth had a vertical pole covered in dense boar hair specifically installed to remedy the situation. It pays to be prepared. In any case, if he were here he would have some choice words about the situation. An experimental spell is fizzling quickly. An experimental spell that played with the very fabric of the world in a field of magic I am unfamiliar with for the simple reason that it did not exist 2 years ago. I cannot even begin to consider what the worst-case scenario is. We are in uncharted disaster territory. The real question here is, do I cut and run? I could leave Alexandria to its fate. It would be the most reasonable action, at least in the short term. However, I dismiss this thought as soon as it comes to my mind, and I know why. It is not duty, though duty plays a part. To flee now is to give up on not just the task I was granted, but also on my alliance with Sepher and, possibly, even Constantine. Who would respect a vampire who had a chance to stop the cataclysm and turn tail instead? I would not. In managing our territories, we are expected to solve supernatural threats if only because we do not tolerate competition. It is not greed either, though greed plays a part. I found a treasure trove and I resent the very thought of leaving it for alien beasts to despoil. Already, the signs of their presence in those halls of gold and marble fill my heart with cold anger. We stand in a hallowed place, a temple to knowledge and humanism. I will not part with it so easily, and yet, it is still not the true reason. The real cause is, of course, pride. Our greatest sin. The ever-present cause for our demise. I have been thinking about it. I believe that in order to become a lord, the Watcher's influence is required. The mark of a lord is the Magna Arca, their strange power. When Lord Suarez demonstrated it against the Night Squad, his eyes briefly flashed with the color of the vampire star. I know that I am relying on a vague impression or rather a hunch when making this assumption. It matters not. Hunches are born from instinct and experience, neither of which have failed me when it came to understanding my own nature. That influence will not be bestowed upon the meek, the useless and the stupid. Pride is simply at the heart of what we are. To deny it is to deny our nature. I cannot flee as surely as a fish cannot breathe air. Booth, I ask, where would the notes on this spell be kept? The mage quarters on the 4th floor, I believe. All their laboratories are there. Excellent. I will need those to close the portal safely. For now, we must prepare. Milady? Urchin asks with doubt in his eyes. We came equipped for a diplomatic mission. This is now an extermination mission, and I need my gear for that. We will return to base and fetch our weapons. Pride must be tempered with caution. You mean, a search and rescue mission, right? Our guide asks worriedly. Yes, Mr. Booth. A search and rescue mission, I reply with rolling eyes. Perhaps I should have just bitten that idiot. According to our guide, the library consists of 7 main floors and an archive under the central plaza, which contains advanced magical knowledge and tomes of forbidden lore. In other words, the good stuff. The 4th floor is dedicated to offices, quarters and laboratories. Enough for 20 people to conduct their research comfortably. All of the Rift's preparatory work should be there. Booth was quite helpful in describing the architecture of the library. I ended up biting him because I cannot take the risk that he would grow a spine as Urchin and I conduct our search. It would not do to solve the issue, only to return and find out he somehow sealed us in. Milady, I am scared. Then don't look down, I replied drily. The stairs up and down are situated at either end of the circle and we would be guaranteed to get in combat with packs of the beast. Fighting now would be counterproductive. We need to close the portal first, then mop up. And so, we climb down the face of the inner court, using our claws to prevent an untimely fall onto the plaza. Also onto said plaza's fauna and strange magical phenomenon. Even now, the chaotic light coming from below casts strange shadows on the wall's white stone. Urchin slips. I dig one claw in the carved figure of a well-endowed nymph and grab my accomplice by the collar as he gasps. On the other side of the wall, a few huffs signify the presence of a hound. The creature is unimaginative, however, and after a few disappointed grunts, we hear it paddle away. I shove Urchin against a column which he clings to like an oyster to a hull, then resume my descent. A few seconds of muttered curses after, Urchin follows suit. Our climb ends without further incidents at the edge of the 4th floor. Looking over the railing, I immediately notice differences. While other floors are densely packed labyrinths of bookshelves around small study rooms, this one is almost entirely open. The gap in front of us opens into a vast study room dotted with support pillars and luxurious desks, all of which stand abandoned. A few doors on the opposite walls probably lead to the offices Booth described. Contrary to my expectations, the center path to the laboratories is currently sealed by stacked bookshelves and other various pieces of furniture. A quartet of hounds patrol the open space, occasionally prodding at the improvised barrier. I know what that means. Survivors. Urchin, take the beast on the right, I order. The one currently licking its. Yes, I answer tiredly, that one. On my mark. Ready? Go. I charge and impale the first hound in the heart before it can even detect my presence. In one movement, I dig out the spear and plant a dagger in its companion's head, then complete the twirl with a thrust forward that ends with Sevilla's spearhead in the last creature's skull. I turn around and watch Urchin as he climbs on his hound's back, using his gift to stab the creature repeatedly without having to extricate his blades. The hound gasps in agony, its shrieks dying in what passes as its throat under the unimaginable pain. In only a few seconds, Urchin has dispatched his target, which is, I will admit, a marked improvement. My minion stands up and turns to me, proud of his victory. He takes in the surgically dispatched targets in my waiting form, deflating a bit in the process. You did well, I reassure him, much better than last time. Carrot and stick, Ariane, carrot and stick. Thank you, milady. Should I clear the irrigation system? He offers, pointing at the barricade. Yes, we will clear the corridor together, I correct him, stressing his mistake. Oh, corridor. Do not worry about it. Thank you, you are most grapefruit. I sigh and we get to work. Our task is made more complicated by the need to stay relatively silent. We are forced to cooperate and create a small pile to the side. Fortunately, we receive unexpected help when someone else starts clearing the blockade from the other side. After one last bookshelf tucked away, I come face to face with an astounded wizard. He is rather short, with frizzy dark hair and curious brown eyes of noticeably different colors. His face is handsome, with a scar on his right cheek that grants him a rugged look. His aura is peculiar, as if it had depth. You are not from the society, he observes. Too late, I feel a small spell bouncing against my essence, tasting it. The mage reacts immediately by taking a nervous step back. He pales. Indeed not, I reply with a fanged smile. The mage stumbles away and crosses himself. I do not feel the same threat as usual. Rather than pushing me away, he is simply accepting his fate. I use the opportunity to inspect him. He wears a beige suit and white shirt set I would expect from a well-to-do gentleman, though currently wrinkled and smelling a bit ripe. His right hand is clad in the most intricate gauntlet I have ever seen. While many mages will restrain themselves to a few combinations of runes for a good balance between power and versatility, the man facing me has clearly gone for specialization. He wields a tool, not a weapon. So, to what do I owe the pleasure of your visit? He asks, a bit flustered. So very courteous. My name is Ariane, this is Urchin, I offer. Oh, where are my manners? Ricardo Solo, at your service, he answers with a short bow. The familiarity of those words help him settle. Charmed. Where were we? Ah yes. We were on our way to visit your most honorary society as we meant to get acquainted with Alexandria's respectable citizenry. As is our wont, Urchin contributes. When, I continue with a reproachful look, we came across a tear in the very universe and a cataclysm of biblical proportion in the making. Not to mention those weird dogs, Urchin continues, on a roll. We would be really interested in a way to close the rift lest it swallows us all and casts our wretched coils into the great beyond. Preferably before the sun rises, Urchin finishes, to my dismay. Solo's wary expression turns hopeful, which I always find curious in people I have half a mind to eat. Oh, then our interests coincide. I, too, would prefer not to be disintegrated into my component atoms. Should we work together? That would be brilliant. Then follow me, fellow, non-hostile sapient beings, he declares with just a bit of hesitation, before heading back to one of the doors in the hallways beyond. As we step forth, Urchin leans towards me. Milady, I believe this man is a bit out there, if you catch my meaning. Thank you for your valuable input, Urchin, I retort. We follow the weird survivor to a side room clearly set to be a laboratory. Working stations line the walls, covered in protective white ceramic. The stone floor is corroded or oddly colored in some places, while to the side, our guest has set up an improvised camp. Several experiments are in progress, one involving temperature variation to condense the collected water which then drips into a beaker. Ricardo passes by and casually gulps its contents before moving on. We follow him to the largest table, set in the middle of the room. On it, a plan of the central ritual has been laid out with colored notes and pins stuck in strategic places. The complexity is breathtaking, and the difference to Semiramis' work is that this time, it is simple enough that I managed to grasp some of the underlying concepts. The ritual uses 2 batteries, 1 instruction set, a stabilizing array on a loop and coordinates based on resonance codes. Where did you get this? I ask while pointing at that last component. The glyph used is unknown to me while the rest of the runes are typical Western standard. Oh, a practitioner as well. You must be well educated to understand the spell that quickly, Ricardo answers. When I do not volunteer more information, he averts his eyes. To answer your question, there has always been a background mana signature in the air. Recently, that background became much more stable, though we are not sure how and why. Because an old monster decided to play God. There are several sequences of mana waves in the air, which we can capture on an electrum sheet using an appropriate apparatus. Pretentious. Silver ought to work just as well. A mage from Switzerland correctly identified that the waves were not one, but instead a multitude of sequences of various lengths. I surmise that the main sequence identified our own world due to its intensity and perfect stability, while others are echoes of distant worlds. Those worlds move relative to ours, and so their sequence is not perfectly stable, but thanks to a mathematical model, I was able to predict a time when a sequence would match a specific set of coordinates. Now, you have realized that the door to the bookstore manipulates space, correct? Indeed. I made it 10 years ago. The framework is mostly the same, the main difference being said coordinates. Impressive, I note with grudging respect. The design is simple, clean and elegant. I remember that powerful casters age more slowly as they grow in power. For most, the slowing down occurs in their later years, meaning that most Archmage gatherings look like geriatric wards. The fact that Ricardo does not look 1 year above 30 is a testament to his skill and power. We now face a complication. The portal was fed energy for 2 days, and should naturally close within the next 8 hours. Let me guess, we do not have 8 hours. Well, the coordinates are slowly changing as the connected world moves away from ours. It will place an ever-growing strain on the portal. There are also unexplained disruptions. Probably those creatures. Yes, likely. Whatever the cause is, the spell will go critical in less than 3 hours. Meaning? Remember when I talked about disintegration? We both fall silent. I assume you have a failsafe. I ask after a while with just a little bit of apprehension. I do. Please look at this section. I follow his direction and find a subsystem of runes attached to the 2 batteries. It is part of the spell, and at the same time, it will not activate unless triggered separately. The glyphs for a sort of vent that should siphon out energy in record time. This looks promising. It will close the rift almost instantly. I feel a but coming. Ricardo looks aggravated. Obviously, I could not let anyone shut down my experiment with ease after all the work I put into it. In order to activate the failsafe, I must input a glyph code in a very specific order. Let me get this straight. Your fail-safe, which you placed on an experimental work of great might with the potential to explode in your face and lay waste to the entire region, can only be used by you and take seconds to activate. A full minute. By the Watcher. How could I know that things could go so bad? Yes, how could the disaster occur with such competent people at the helm? I am positively flummoxed, I reply with an acerbic tone. Ricardo crosses his arm on his chest and lifts his chin, a gesture that would be considerably more intimidating if he were not so short. So the rumors are true, vampires are creatures of sarcasm, eh? I take a step forward and invade his personal space. You should simmer down before I remind you of what else we are famous for. In this specific context, extreme violence. Ricardo understands my meaning clearly and raises both hands in a placating gesture. My apologies. You are correct, of course, there were oversights. Including on my part. I step back, signaling an end to the hostilities. If I understand correctly, we need to get you to that part of the glyph and give you 1 minute of calm, is that correct? I ask the mage. Yes, preferably before long. Before we plan for that, I have another question. Yes. How come you are the only survivor? I ask lightly. Mr. Solo frowns as he realizes that I boxed him against the table. My relative closeness makes him uncomfortable. I did not participate in the casting, he admits, the design is mine, but I wanted to wait another cycle to double-check my calculations. Hazel, that would be our previous leader, he wanted us to be the first to reach a new world. I have been corresponding with other researchers around the continent. We were at the vanguard of research, but Hazel wanted the prestige associated with a first successful rift. So he casted himself. Him and our other senior members. They took some precautions, of course, they even kept everyone around with battle spells ready. I had taken refuge in an isolation pod in a nearby laboratory just in case. When nothing exploded, I came out to the railing to watch the completed ritual. When I approached, I heard screams, then I saw the moving blasphemy my creation had vomited into this world. He shakes his head and grows visibly nervous. He grasps his hands tightly as if to exorcise the memories from his mind. The screams, my God. Our spells did nothing against the creature. They only seemed to energize it. Then another came, probably attracted by the smell of blood, then another. There was nothing I could do. I retreated here and prepared a desperate plan to close that portal before it swallows us all. Ricardo shudders and averts his eyes, now brimming with unshed tears. I feared that he may be dangerously cold, and I was mistaken. He merely postponed his grief and his horror. There is no deception in him, I am sure of it. Could there be any other survivors? He considers the question for a moment. I find it extremely unlikely, but yes, someone may have locked themselves in one of the reading rooms on the first floor. They are specifically designed for isolation and privacy. Why? I ask excitedly, are those where the books of hidden lore are stored? Not exactly. I look on with confusion. Well, the first floor contains a very expansive collection, Ricardo continues sheepishly. Of what? I ask with impatience. Pornography and erotica. Just. What? I cannot. Seriously? You have to understand, he continues, while behind us urchin sniggers. I throw both arms up in exasperation. I cannot stand this stupid place anymore. Those people. We are mostly celibate. Have you considered getting in touch with the exclusively female society of witches living in the same Watcher accursed city? There have been a few tentative openings, of course. Unfortunately, they didn't pan out. A question of ego, on both sides I'm afraid. You don't say. You treated them like conceited tarts and they thought you were a bunch of pompous dolts, am I correct? More or less, yes. Well, you were both right. Now, and before any more disappointing revelations, I would like us to focus on the task at hand. We have a cataclysm to stop. Yes, my apologies. My primary concern is the ritual. Fortunately, the matter is simple, really. I need free access to the glyphs while remaining free of the attention of those wretched creatures. There has to be a dozen now, at least. A little more than that, I'm afraid. But surely you are here. We did not slaughter our way down, we bypassed them by climbing down the inner court's walls. So, they are unstoppable, Ricardo whispers with dread. We still killed 8 on our way here, I retort somewhat defensively. Nothing is unstoppable for me. Well, no, many things are unstoppable. Just not these mutts. Pa. Oh good, the man continues, then perhaps yes. If we could lure the beasts away from the central position. Then you could get down the same way as us, and close the portal as the hounds are otherwise occupied, I finish for him. Precisely. As for the lure, a powerful spell coupled with some noise should be enough to draw them to the upper floors. But we can't cast spells, interjects Urchin, who had been quiet until now. I silence him with a glare. We never admit a weakness before a stranger, though in this case, his mistake is minor. I would have had to admit it at some point. You are not a mage. Ricardo asked me, stupefied, but I am trained in magical theory. I haven't found the time to practice yet. How can you not find the time to study the art of all arts? Ricardo demands, scandalized. I grab him by the collar and pull him in until our noses almost touch. Because I keep being distracted from this noble goal by imbeciles with much more skill than common sense. He averts his eyes. Point taken, he croaks, and I release him. I cannot believe you have never cast, he mutters as he fixes his tie. Clearly, the revelation has rattled him. Typical of one whose existence does not depend on his ability to make himself too bothersome to kill. That changes everything. If you can cast, you can cast. I can help you. Hold on, are you saying that you can teach me how to do magic in less than an hour? No, not as such, no, Solo mutters as he opens a cabinet under one of the tables and rummages through its contents. Aha, he exclaims. The proud mage turns around and both Urchin and I watch the massive gauntlet in his hands. This is a focused gauntlet. It offers a considerable power boost, but you can only use it to cast one spell. We use it when we need to do some heavy lifting and neither flexibility nor subtlety are required. It sounds right up your alley, milady, Urchin whispers before recoiling when I fix him with a murderous glare. With this, Solo continues, you shall have no difficulty casting a basic spell. Did you have something in mind? I consider it. Yes. As a matter of fact, I did. Must I engrave the central plate here with the appropriate rune? That is correct. Do so, then follow my directions and you will find yourself casting in no time. I have a feeling it cannot be this easy. Ricardo rightfully takes my silence for doubt. We are brute forcing the spell. It will work, I am sure of it. I got a measure of your aura earlier and, well, you have a lot of power to play with. You will definitely succeed. If you say so, I concede. The 7th floor, near the entrance. Everything is ready. I left my pistols with Urchin, whose task it will be to protect Ricardo from stragglers. They are noisy but powerful weapons. By the time he uses them, I should have the full attention of the packs. In the meanwhile, he has knives. The pair is hanging from a delivery basket on the 4th floor, ready for the signal. My spell. The very first one I will cast voluntarily and without Lycian essence flooding my veins. I look at the unwieldy gauntlet around my left hand. It fits snugly. I believe that one day, I will have my own, crafted for my own needs and according to my preferences. For now, I will make do. I use a claw to slice my thumb and christen the rune on the back of my hand with a bloody imprint. I extend a tendril of essence through it and into the gauntlet, feeling a queer sense of feedback. The reaction is both filling a container and lighting a fire. After only a moment, something clicks and yet I still feed more power into the conduit until it grows uncomfortably cramped. I have the symbols, I have the power. The last ingredient is the will. I call the concept into my mind. The interior of the sarcophagus as I wake up. The shadow of a building in the dark of the night. Storm clouds passing over the moon. It shelters me, protects me, assists me. It is my element, a tool and a weapon. A familiar absence. Sinead used to say that under its dominion fall both the caress of the lover and the stiletto to end a life, and he was right. It conceals the whisperers and the moaners, those who succumb to pleasure and to death. Science says it is the absence of light. That it is empty. Foolishness, for it harbors the fear of men in its vast, incomprehensible depths. Let it come now. Let darkness be. New Sharan. I open my eyes to nothing. The orbs are muted, the candles extinguished. Black clouds, tarry yet immaterial, roll away from me, taking with it an amount of energy so large it makes me gasps. The spell is born. It slithers between chair legs and through the interstitial space in the shattered bookshelves. It crawls under blood-drenched banners and over the cooling corpses of the slaughtered hounds. Darkness, pure and simple. I see nothing, yet I know where things are. The awareness comes to me, for the cloud is from me, and through me. It is me. And below, the creatures bay. They can finally taste the scent of the prey that had eluded their efforts so far. A stampede makes the ground tremble, starting from below. Suddenly, an intuition comes over me. The same way I sometimes know from where an attack will come, I feel something. My death. I am going to die. No, I could die. I need to. I cling to the impression, focusing on it as it drifts from my grasp like sand. I need. Movement. Yes, of course. My usual strategy will not work against those creatures. I need to keep moving, always. Vampire strength will not save my life here. Vampire speed will. I approach the railing and pass my head through the cloud of unnatural darkness to stare below and check my allies' progress. Oh. Oh no. Some hounds on the ground have not moved yet. They just paddle on the white and black tiles, sniffing as they go. But of course. My spell is darkness. It must be stealthier than the classic firebolt, and they have not felt me. How did I not think of it? No. What should I do? I need to attract their attention. Quickly, Ariane, do something. Sounds. Well, I could just do that. I step over the railing. I stand straight, feet apart and hands on my waist. Pre-Indie. The hounds stop and raise their alien maws as my voice resonates, clear and, of course, horribly off-tune. On the fourth floor, the two men stare with sheer horror as I inflict the most disgraceful, the most shamelessly vile treatment possible on Adana's sublime aria. Somewhere in Italy, Donizetti's poor ears ought to be bleeding. Prendi, per me se libero. Resta nel sol nadiathio. I slaughter the song and the remaining hounds rush up the stairs with the wrath of 10,000 sopranos. The men wince and with one last look of pained incredulity, make their way down with the delivery basket. I just cast my first spell, and instead of riding the wave of my pride, I am forced to commit musical murder in the name of survival. Truly, this world is cruel beyond compare. No time to cry, the first beasts are already coming. The time has come for me to fulfill my purpose, the reason why our bloodline exists in the first place. The fracas of heavy bodies galloping on solid stone grows like the sound of a rolling drum. It echoes across the void of the inner court and down the maze of shelves on all sides. I take my spear and point it forward. You are not welcome here. I thrust through the first hound's skull, catch the one jumping over the corpse of its companion in the heart and sweep a third against the wall, then I fall back as three more take their place. We have claimed this land. With precise thrusts, I dispatch more hounds. A strike must kill with impunity, or I do not take it. I run, I flee, it does not matter. Tonight, I am not the pouncing predator but a lone wolf harrying a stag. I cannot slay it in one go, and that is fine. Bit by bit, nibble by nibble, I will take their numbers down until the end. I just need to survive and not be swarmed. One mistake is all it would take. Thrust and sweep, kill two as they hamper each other trying to pass a small alcove. Always, I stay aware of my surroundings. I jump backwards over fallen bookshelves and slide below the largest desks while my pursuers ram themselves into every obstacle. I remain untouched, as swift and elusive as the wind. Dance with me, mongrels. Yes, no matter how long I live I cannot give this up, the ecstasy of deadly combat. The waltz on the edge of a blade. Another fall as I dodge left, then retreat right, always keeping to the outside circle of the library. If I enter those labyrinthic inner rooms, I shall surely die. I go on, thrust, kick and dodge, until the inevitable happens. I hear growls at my back. I cast the spell while close to a first stairwell, and now I have completed a half circle and reached the second. Without hesitation, I grab a desk and send it smashing into the lead hounds and turn around. I lower the spear and charge like a jousting knight, stabbing into the first hound in front of me and pushing it into the next. I move left, along the railing, and use a palm to push a third hound away. A lucky swipe catches me in the calf, making me stumble. Not good. I use the other leg to propel me forward as I turn to check the damage. I find very little of it. A trickle of blood and a gash in the intricate network of mail. I test my weight gingerly and find my mobility unimpeded, the wound already healing. Thank you, Loth. I rush to the stairs, slaying 2 more creatures on the way and jump down as hounds arrive from everywhere. I hear a gunshot coming from below and hope that urchin did not miss this time. I did train him, after all. At the next landing, I move again, the horde still on my trail. I am faster, but killing slows me down and kill I must, if only to avoid being overwhelmed. Dodge, thrust, sprint, push. My universe is reduced to these actions. There is nothing but the dance. Then it happens. A lucky maw grabs my arm. I punch the creature, jump up and dig my claws into the plaster of the ceiling, pushing away. Close call. Far beneath my feet, the portal dies with a whine and a fizzle. I stumble at the wave. The dimensional spell's energy bleeds out into the world. The purple beasts shiver, energized. Ah, by the Watcher. Faster now, faster, cannot afford to be boxed in. Just punch and sweep, no time to kill. Faster. And then, I feel a pull. The same intuition I practiced with cards, the very instincts that kept me alive so many times tell me that this is it, this is the moment. I listen. All the creatures must be here now, on this floor. Their insane baying drill into my ears. So loud. They are packed 3 thick in the narrow corridors. Perfect. With a roar, I push forward and into a study, take a sharp turn and, with all my might, jump over the railings. The creatures scramble after me, many falling to their death. The head pursuers are pushed into the abyss by the ravening mass of their kin. I fly through the air in a beautiful arc, turn on myself and pull the satchel charge from my back. In one graceful movement, I trigger it by pulling on a rope and send the fuming package back where I came from. The dark leather bag disappears in the mass of bodies glutting against the gap. I remember to protect my ears. The charge explodes in a cataclysmic blow. The shockwave travels through the densely packed flesh with the ghastly sound of crushed meat and shattered bones. The explosion sends pieces of masonry flying in the central court, opening a hole 6 yards across. And from this gaping wound in the pallid flesh of the building, a cascade of purple ichor flows freely. The remnants of the creatures, torn apart by the detonation, leak the viscous fluid as if the marble was but a shell to some unnatural, titanic life. Monstrous slabs of bruised meat soon follow and with it, a few hounds saved by the unwilling sacrifice of their brethren. Oof! A half-pillar smacks into my back, sending me reeling. Momentum carries me on the opposite balcony, around the 3rd floor. I smash into the carving of the gargoyle arms first and manage to stop my fall. On the ritual ground, Urchin and Ricardo step back as a handful of surviving beasts rise, shaking their heads. I let go and land on the closest one, spear first. I slam my weapon into the ground with a loud crack, turn around and dispatch the survivors as they struggle to climb to their paws. The others stare at me, open-mouthed. It is done. It worked. I can mop up the stragglers later. I have succeeded. All our objectives are fulfilled, and we are still alive. We won, and yet, I cannot help but feel a little bit of sadness. Urchin steps forward, as proud as can be. He grabs a dazed Ricardo by the shoulder. His stretched arm encompasses the unholy mass of alien flesh before him, the flaming pieces of masonry and other burning debris, the dark snow of burnt paper falling over us like some hellish weather in the apocalyptic vista of death and destruction this place has become. We did it, people. We saved the library. Idiot. I slowly massage the bridge of my nose and ask the one question burning on my lips. Urchin, are those my precious pistols I see discarded on the filthy ground? Air.